as the water goes into a house, the water comes out of the house, we have the sewer maintenance division, and then we have that keeps the lines going and the mains going in the city, and then it goes to pump stations. The pump stations and then the wastewater treatment plant are ran by the wastewater or water pollution control facility personnel, and they then clean the water. It's really now called a clean water plant instead of a wastewater plant, because your product is clean water, and it then goes into the Flint River. So these are the groups that you'll be talking to today, and as you call them up, each will describe in a little more detail than what I just said.
Okay, that would be great. Could you give us the first cost center that will be coming up?
That,
Is that the water
you had asked first for administration,
administration?
if I follow the schedule.
Okay,
We have UP, or DPW Utilities Administration, and then do you mind which way I call them up, or do you want them to
just
stay in
as
this
long as
order?
we know the fund number, that's fine, so that we can find them in our packet.
Okay, well, the first one would be our sewer group.
Okay,
In our numbers, their sewer is 590,
okay,
and,
and that's the one I've got marked.
okay,
That's where my flag is.
I'm just looking real quick here to see in that, in my other packet. Okay, well, I guess we'll start with the wastewater plant then.
Sounds good to me.
Start at the back, work our way the other way.
What? 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. As long as we know where we are, we're good.
Say, my name is Jeanette Best. I'm the Water Pollution Control Manager. Do I have
What was
mic
that
on?
again?
Get it closer? My name is Jeanette Best. I'm the Water Pollution Control Manager. We operate the wastewater treatment plant, and we're responsible for the lift stations and pump stations, collecting the wastewater and bringing it to the plant. What we do is, I basically tell people, we're at the end of the pipe. Everything goes down the drain, comes to the plant, and we treat it. We have what they call an NPDES permit, which is a federally mandated permit to clean the water and then discharge it into the river after it's cleaned and disinfected. That's primarily what we do. We maintain the facility. You know, we operate the facility, maintain the facility, operate the lift stations, maintain the lift stations and the pump stations.
All the ones we get the change orders for.
Well, not as many as some of the other facilities. Right now, we're doing several very large renovations and restorations and upgrades to the facility because there haven't been any upgrades done since the mid-'80s. And a lot of the equipment,
Get closer. Bring it close. Just bring
Okay.
it. There you go.
a lot of the equipment there is past its useful life, and we've been making do with what we could, you know, Band-Aiding a lot of things. So what we're doing is upgrading the facility at this point, putting in some new technology and upgrading the operation itself.
Who would like to start? We're still getting ourselves organized. Mr. Murphy, did you want to start with your questions?
I really kind of wanted to see if they finished all of they. Were you done? Were you done with your presentation, budget-wise?
I'm not sure exactly what you'd like.
Well, you guys are here
Yes.
because y'all doing a presentation on the budget. Whether y'all okay with y'all budget, whether you need an increase, a decrease in budget, you know, I kind of wanted to.
Our budget is
How mu-
pretty much the same as it has been for the last few years. There are a few increases in our capital improvement budget and for repairs and replacements, and some of that is necessary due to the fact that we're adding new equipment, and so we need to put some repair parts and maintenance equipment on the shelf, so that if we do have to take, maintain the equipment and repair it, we've got parts. We've done that, historically, we've kept it in stock, and now we need to add the new pieces of equipment to that stock room.
Okay. So one of the questions I wanted to.
Is your mic on?
Yes, you can't hear me? You can't? Can you guys hear me over there?
No.
Can you hear me back there, Paul?
We just have to yell.
When we get reports of sewage that spilled into the river, could you explain to us how that happened?
Well, there are several different ways. The state says anytime we spill any water onto the ground or in the river, it's called a sanitary sewer overflow. If there is a broken water or sewer line and they're cleaning that line and they spill a little bit of sewage onto the ground, we have to report that. So some of those things, you'll see those public notices because that's required by the state. Sometimes it's very, very minute. Other times, when we do have an overflow or a piece of equipment, I think the most recent one you've probably seen was we actually had a big force main break at the plant, and it flooded the pump station itself, and the water, it actually filled the whole building up with water, and it overflowed onto the ground and then ran into the river. And I have to give our guys credit because they got in there and stopped it within 12 hours. The state was amazed. We had the state come out and look and see what happened, with the big pipe that broke, because it was a force main, which means there's a pump that's pumping water to that pipe. So we managed to shut it off, get it repaired, and everything was back to normal in less than 24 hours. But we did have a significant overflow then. But that was part of the old equipment. It was a pipe that was due to be replaced and was replaced, and there was a valve put in that would allow us to shut it off, which we didn't have. That was done 2 days later. It was part of the upgrade. So it broke 2 days before we managed to get the repair done. And that's why we're doing all these upgrades and repairs, is so that we don't have failures like that, equipment failures.
So,
It was a 24-inch pipe.
so on an average day, how many staff are working in your department?
Our department has a complement of 38 people, but there are several vacancies right now. I think we've got 6 vacancies. Where's my little picture? 7 vacancies? Okay, thank you.
What are those vacancies?
We have a vacancy in the senior operators. We're missing 2 senior wastewater treatment plant operators. We've got a senior pump station operator that's vacant. We've got a water pollution control senior maintainer that's vacant. We had somebody retire. An instrumentation tech, we have 2 vacancies there. One of those actually we supervise for the water treatment plant, the drinking water plant. We have a water pollution control SCADA systems technician that's vacant. A senior environmental compliance analyst that's vacant. And that's it.
In the meantime, in between time, is those vacancies stopping any of the efficiency when it comes down to the operation of the day-to-day?
We have an enormous amount of overtime because the plant can't be just left on its own. And in the operations and maintenance, we have a lot of overtime just trying to get the work done. There's a huge budget for overtime. And the pump station operator, that was a position that has been vacant for a couple of years. Well, the senior operators, we've had vacancies for 5 years.
I just wanted to say one thing to help. The wastewater treatment plant and the water plant are both 24/7 operations. Okay. The wastewater treatment plant and the water treatment plant are both 7-day operations. We need people there 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. So if anybody calls in sick, we have the minimum number that the state allows for the most part. So when somebody calls in, we have to do overtime. If someone goes on vacation, someone gets hurt, we have to go and use overtime right now to correct that. We're trying to get personnel in to fill like the operator positions. That's a training series that takes
18 months.
18 months, a year and a half, to become a senior operator and be able to do any job in the plant, but it's 18 months of training, so to get them where they need to be. So it takes time. When we lose people, it takes time to bring a new person in. You're talking 18 months before they're fully trained. And in doing so, like I said, we want to try to do that as quickly as possible and keep, but we're not allowed, we don't have extras anywhere. We just have our complement. When someone leaves, retires, et cetera, that leaves a hole until we can fill it, and it takes a while for many of our positions to be trained and to move up, to be a senior operator, a senior maintainer, et cetera. The same at the water plant. For the most part, we again have a 24-hour operations, and there has to be people there to be able to oversee what's going on at the plant. On the off shifts, there's a lower complement than the day shift because there's more people at the day shift for maintenance. Same with the wastewater treatment plant. There's more people during the day than on second or third shift, but we have a minimum number of people that have to be there for those shifts also. Did I miss anything?
No,
Okay.
just, some of those positions have been vacant for many years, 5 or 6 years. Our senior environmental compliance analyst, we had one man retire. We hired one after 5 years of vacancies. We got somebody, and 2 months later, one of our people retired, and now we're trying to find another one. So we've had a vacancy there for about 6 years. Okay.
So what you think the problem is of attracting people to those positions? Is it the pay?
It's the pay.
Or it's
It's the pay. The senior analyst that we hired, she took the job and didn't realize what the pay was. And she said, had I known, where I was going to start, I wouldn't have taken it. But she was really excited about the work.
Do you know what the average pay is for some of these positions?
Say, Crystal, our handy-dandy administrative tech,
Do
put
we
all those
have-
numbers together.
Let me ask you this question. Do we have a copy?
We will get you a copy.
Okay, all right.
We'll be sending, like the last, yesterday you asked, let me get back on here. We'll be sending any copies that you ask for, just as some people today received emails because they had email questions that we could answer. We will also, I sent a notice to my boss to be sent to the clerk for everybody to get for the costs of, and the position names and the number of people in the position as was asked yesterday for transportation. So all those will be coming to you in the near future. I've asked everybody here to put them together also, and I will compile that, send it through the clerk to be distributed so it's done correctly. Thank you. Okay.
Say, the average pay for the senior environmental analyst is $48,000 a year, and that takes a college degree and experience.
What was that number again?
$48,000 a year.
That's average across the country.
That's the average for the 4 people we have right now. And some of those people, 3 people?
3 people plus a vacant.
Yeah, we have the vacancy, so. And 2 of those people are at probably, they're over 10 years, so they've moved up in the pay scale. So bringing somebody in is very difficult.
So, you guys are working on training someone in that 18-month?
That's for the operator, yes.
So someone is in y'all plant right now?
We don't,
that is-
no, there are 2 vacancies right now. We don't have anybody. We're looking at, I think we've got 2 applicants, and they are in the recruiting process right now. So we need to do the testing and interviewing for the 2 applicants that we've got for the operator positions.
So, my last question, then I'm gonna turn it back over to you. With the overtime, is you guys staying within budget, the allocated budget for your department, being that you're using so much overtime?
We budget the overtime, yes.
Okay. All right, that's it for right now.
Ms. Herkenroder?
Hello again to some of you, and hello to those who I have not seen yet. I do first really want to say I see some familiar faces from the Court Street debacle, and I wanted to say how incredibly grateful I am for you all for hanging out with me on Court Street in the middle of the night when all of the water mains, when you could throw a kayak down and kayak down Court Street. So I just wanted to first say tremendous thank you to all of you for helping with all of that. And as we did yesterday, hopefully nothing happens this year. So I first wanted to say thanks. I don't have very many questions. One question in particular, though, is in regards to staffing. So yesterday we learned that the DPW budget was prepared prior to an accountant leaving. I know there was a lot of different restructuring ideas, and it looks like within the staffing changes for the water pollution control, it looks like in this budget that there are 2 part-time water pollution control positions that have been eliminated or are not budgeted for. Is that still what is the desire of the department? Don't forget to use the mic because Paul might yell at you.
No, he might not, he will.
Okay, don't touch it.
Don't touch it?
No, touch it. Just like make sure you talk into it.
Oh, just move it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We had 2 temporary positions that were eliminated because we were done using those. However, our budget did increase by 2 positions because we had budgeted for a reorganization. We had presented a plan to reorg our department by eliminating 2 positions, but because that reorg has yet to be approved, we asked to put those positions back. And if they choose to approve the reorg, then those positions will be eliminated.
So I see, I just want to make sure that I understand what you just said. So those are those part-time positions, they're completely done, right?
The part-time positions are completely done. However, in one of the vacancies for the senior operator training series, we do have a retiree on a temporary basis filling in. And in one of our instrumentation technician positions, we also have another retiree that's filling in temporarily for that vacancy. Hopefully, we'll be able to have viable candidates for these retirees to train these people.
Okay.
Because, I mean, we're already short-staffed, so it's very difficult to train a new person as well as do your regular duties.
Right, right. So there's 2, compared to last year to this year, it looks like there's a request for 2 full-time members in addition to the existing ones.
Right.
For water pollution control, 1 additional full-time employee for water treatment plant, and then 2 additional full-time employees for water service center. And are those still the staffing levels that you wish to maintain?
Let me say, we're water pollution control, water service center would have to answer that separately, but ours has the 2 positions put back that we were planning to distribute the duties, eliminate the 2 positions, redistribute the duties amongst the other existing employees as well as the pay, so that in the long run, it would actually be a cost savings measure.
Okay, all right, thank you. And then I did have another question that was from a 7th Ward resident in regards to, it's kind of vague, and I do apologize, but it's in regards to like the debt service expenses for water and sewer, because it looks as though that's going to cost about $6 million.
Part of that is the wastewater plant, and part of it is the drinking water plant.
Okay.
I think ours, the total will be less than 3 million
Okay.
for the wastewater.
Okay.
That's not even, that will be the ultimate, once we complete the Phase 2 projects, the total debt service will be about 3 million. Because it's about 1.3 for Phase 1. And the one thing you need to know about that, we recognize the fact that there's a lot of debt service, but the improvements we're making, they are cost-saving improvements. We're replacing some very, very old equipment For example, we put in new air blowers because we need air for one of the processes. And the ones that we were using before, they're 1,750 horsepower blowers. They're huge. I mean, they're like 8 feet tall. They're, yeah. They're just gigantic. And what we've done is we've replaced those with, and there were 4 of those. We've replaced those with 3, what they call turbo blowers, that are 700 horsepower, and they have dual cores so we can ramp them down from 350 to 700 horsepower. We think that the estimated cost savings there is more than $250,000 just in electricity
Wow.
for that. So that goes a long way
Yeah.
toward paying that debt service.
Sure does.
So the cost up front is going to get covered in the long end.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, the return on investment will be realized very quickly. One of the other things we've done is we've eliminated the chlorine disinfection process. We've installed ultraviolet light disinfection, and what we can do with that, for one, it takes and gets rid of 1-ton chlorine cylinders that we keep on site and use to disinfect the water with, and to make sure that we don't put any leftover chlorine in the river, we have to dechlorinate it with sulfur dioxide in the 1-ton cylinders. And we were just looking at the cost there. The costs have increased from about $400 a ton to $1,350 for a ton of chlorine. So,
Wow.
yeah.
In 9 months?
Just in 9 months, in the last 9 months. The overall cost, what did we figure? The overall cost for that, yeah, it was over $200,000, or close to $200,000 a year. We're looking at a cost for the electricity to operate the ultraviolet light system at about $40,000 for electrical costs. And that's, that's our best guess. So there's a cost saving there of a significant amount of money. Those are just 2 of the projects. Besides that, we don't have, with chlorine, in a 1-ton cylinder, if you have a leak in one of those, there's a 5-mile radius that you have to worry about the possibility of exposure for the community. And we've got McLaren Hospital close to us. We've got a couple of schools, several subdivisions, all within that 5-mile radius. So we have what they call a process safety management program. But, the potential to have a disaster is frightening.
Yeah.
So that was one of the driving forces, is to get rid of that toxic chemical, both of them.
Mr. Brown, it looked like you had something you wanted to say.
No, she actually covered, I was going to say, because by getting rid of the chlorine ton cylinders and the sulfur dioxide ton cylinders, it's a much safer environment, and we're not going to have any kind of a release. And that way, makes it safer for the people working there and the public.
Thank you. For me, this has been very informative. I would love to keep hearing more of the cost savings measures that you all have, which I'm sure my colleagues will probably be able to help afford you with that opportunity as well as we keep going. But thank you guys so much. Those are all the questions that I have right now.
You're welcome to come on the tour.
I would love that.
All you have to do is call and set an appointment.
All right. We'll be in touch.
What's the phone number?
No, I was going to say, don't make it public, people will call.
7210.
Mr. Pfeiffer?
Good evening, and appreciate you guys showing up today. So I'm going to speak in generalities just from the sewer fund, and then you guys can holler out whoever has the answer. Do we know, because I don't have 21, 22 numbers on this document, without digging up the audit, do we know what our total expenditures were?
Total expenditures.
It's not in there, right over there.
The whole sewer fund includes both the the wastewater treatment plant and the water and sewer, or the sewer maintenance component of it. And we didn't bring that part.
Thank you. So it looks like we spent 29.25 million in '21. So if did we have the
Of
same?
information.
Yeah.
That's the change in the position. We spent 3.5 million. It's the line above that.
I think that that's not accurate. I think that, I'm looking for the total,
The total expenses for FY 2021 was 3.589430.
I don't think that that includes all of these line items, it's way
No.
too low.
Okay.
Our total budget,
It doesn't make sense when you look at the totals.
Well,
They
she's saying
transferred
that
out, they
they're
transferred
bad,
some pension
but our
funds
total-
out. That's what they did. They transferred pension fund costs out.
Even that's not enough they spent. They should be about 30 million.
15 million.
yeah, they had to put some back, and that's why that number looks so small.
Okay.
So do we have a roundabout number of what the 590 fund in total spent last year?
I only printed out what water pollution control spent, and our amended budget for '22 was 13.5 million, and it looks like we spent 5.9 million of that. Our amended budget was 13.5, and it looks like we spent 5.9. And you have to remember that some of the items listed in our budget are more like a contingency, so if something breaks, we need to have parts available now without having to come back to council and say, hey, we need this, because, so we have a lot of POs that we may spend some, we may spend all, we may spend none. And so we rarely ever spend 100% of our budget because some of it is just things that we need available to us.
That's part of my questions, Mr. Brown, is how much did we expend last year of the 590 fund? Meaning, we're appropriating 33 and some change million dollars. How much did we appropriate, or how much did we actually spend last year in the 590?
We give a number for you?
I just gave them our group.
How much was that?
She said 13, I believe.
The operating budget.
The operating was 13.5, and the expenditures were 5.9.
And we have.
So 20?
Yeah.
And I see that we have a little over about 1.5 million at the Water Service Center also for the work that's done there. So if you add that to the 5.9, that's probably,
So we're talking.
I'm not sure that that's correct, though. I'm going to have to go and pull that.
Can you find that out for me?
Certainly.
Um,
Put that on the list.
I'm just trying to circle the square about, we're appropriating $33 million, but our revenues are only 26. And I get that a lot of that is contingency, is what she said, but how much of that is contingency? Are we definitely going to go over the 26? Because we need to try to make sure that those numbers somewhat align. And I think the $7 million deficit is a little hard to swallow.
I think part of the large number that you're looking at includes, we have a clean water revolving loan fund going on, and that is currently around 84 million, and we have had disbursements towards that, so it will look like an expenditure, but it's actually a state and joint federal loan.
I don't think that that's part of our
It's part of the
numbers.
sewer fund, yeah. I don't know if you can see that line, and I don't know, I can't see what you're looking at,
I'm looking at the budget, or the sewer fund budget for,
Page 51.
Yes.
I didn't print out the whole thing. Isn't that this?
and it's, and, you know, we're consistently $7 to $8 million deficit each year, so I'm trying to figure out why we're budgeting in a deficit every year.
I
We'll
will,
have
go ahead, you go ahead, Mike.
Okay. We'll have to take a look at that and get that to you,
Okay.
to get you the right information.
Because I was going to say that generally what finance does is when they do their budgets, they assume that you're going to spend 100% of your budget every year. So when you look at a lot of these numbers for proposed budgets, it's assuming that you spend 100%, but in all actuality, we most likely only spend 60%. So the numbers appear to be higher than what they actually.
And that's
come out
why I
to be.
want 21 numbers, to see what we budgeted for 21 versus what we actually spent.
Right.
And that'll give me a gauge on if we're actually running in a deficit. So
Right,
that-
I understand
yeah.
that, yes.
Yeah, because the other departments has 21 to 22 numbers, and for some reason, water sewer doesn't have previous numbers in this. So
That's the finance thing.
I'm not sure why they do that, but apparently we're going to have to backtrack to get that information. How much revenue is, or do we get any revenue from sewer charges from out county cities?
Yes, yes.
There's the Beecher District.
Oh, that's true.
Beecher District, we provide them a sewer service. Right now, we're negotiating their contract and have been for the last 2 years, and they are way behind on paying us.
How much are they in the hole?
They're about $1.5 million a year, and I'm not sure what the new charges, there have been some escalations, and they're arguing about, oh gee, we can't afford that, so we don't want to pay it. But it costs us to treat the water. So there's, yeah.
So is Beecher our only customer, if you will?
They're our primary out-city customer. We do treat a little bit of water from, I think, Burton. It's a very small area, and
Burton, Flint Township, Grand Blanc Township.
a little bit.
Just minor customers outlined,
Yeah.
or, okay. But that total revenue from out county is about,
It's hard to say because of Beecher. I have no idea. You know, it was about $1.5 million. It should be significantly more than that, but I'm not sure where that's going to go. Like I said, we've been negotiating with them for the last 2 years. Their contract actually expired.
who's leading that negotiation?
I think the city attorney's office, and Angela's no longer with us. They hired a consultant to actually do a rate study for them, you know, for us, and that should be available in the attorney's office. And they've been negotiating back and forth between attorneys.
Point of information.
What's your
To
point?
you, to the speaker. Are you, I guess I wasn't clear. Are you saying that we are not collecting sewer funds from Beecher District?
I believe we're collecting something, but I don't know how much. And that's something you'd have to talk to customer service about. Amanda should know that.
I was going to say that's our treasurer would have those numbers, because she's the collector of all of that. She's also been intently involved in this negotiations and in that with our city attorney.
I have a few more questions. The meter reading of 956,000, why do we need that in the sewer? If the charges are derived from the water, why do we need meter reading in the sewer?
There's meter reading there's a charge for meter reading, there's a set charge for water and sewer, that's always there, and then how much water you use, you're charged extra. It's done to both. It's one meter that runs both of it, so that the group that does metering is paid out of both water and sewer departments.
So meter reading is $1.8 million, that's what it costs for meter reading?
If I could clarify that a little bit,
Yeah,
the assumption is made that whatever is taken into the house as far as water goes, it goes down the drain. So we have to treat it. So that's why they split the cost on the meter reading.
okay. I was just wondering, because meter reading, because if it's all derived from the water, why do I need it in the sewer? But
It's a shared cost.
I understand that, okay. The $3 million capital outlay that is budgeted every year, can you expand on what that is actually used for, given that we just got $100 million from the wind fund, which is going to take care of a lot of those capital improvements for the facility? Can you explain what exactly that $3 million is budgeted for?
That money is budgeted, the wind fund money is only for our water department. It's only for water lines, it's not for sewage.
Okay, so what are we anticipating that $3 million is to be spent on in the sewer department?
Those are our capital improvement projects that we're trying to get through, plus making sure we have enough in case anything does happen where we need to bring in more. Anything you'd like to add?
A lot of the capital improvements money goes towards replacement of pumps, VFDs, variable frequency drives, MCC, motor control centers, because they often fail, and large purchases such as that, lead abatement, lead paint abatement, and asbestos abatement. And we also have a locker room that really is in need of repair. So we've included all aspects of refurbishing our locker rooms within that budget.
So can
And
we,
roof repairs, large repairs, basically.
certainly, so if we add up all the capital outlays I guess the capital outlay in the sewer administration of 3.5 million, is that, what is that, Mr. Brown?
It would depend on which department within the sewer fund you're referring to, because we have, Water Pollution Control has our set of capital outlay that we have, and the Water Service Center Sewer Distribution has their set. So for us, it will be the items I just named, and maybe a few other anomalies, but I can't answer for them, but Treese can answer.
Hello.
Thought you were off the hook.
Yes, I did. Well, for us, it would be for our building. We have a very old building. And it would be for window replacements.
It's not as nice as City Hall?
Oh, no, it's not, not at all, young man. You need to come out there with us. But we would like to get, for windows, for our blinds, locksmith, for our True Green, the janitorial services, and unforeseen services, which we made what includes, it's called dewatering. What happened is you go to an area, let's just say, are you familiar with Nebraska Street, Nebraska Avenue?
Yep.
Well, that's what we call a high water table area. So we were just over there last month, where we had to set what you call well points. And what it does is it vacuums all the water from the ground, because if we were to dig it, it would be unsafe for our crews. So much water comes in. So what ended up happening, you guys? So what ended up happening, you guys, is we ended up having to set well points. And when we set the well points, you have to have around-the-clock service. And you have to have guys there to man the pumps. And it takes approximately 10 to 15 days, and it cost us $36,000 for 10 days.
Is that our own equipment that we are using, or are we?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Well, our pump went down. Our vacuum pump, which is old, it's very, very old, and we have it in the list of items that we would like to buy. But we ended up having to rent one from Mercinos.
Mercino.
Yes. So we had to rent one from there. So it's costs like that that we have to be ready for, which we have another line that needs to be done also, but we couldn't budget both lines for this year.
Is there anybody other than Messina, or is that basically where we get a majority
That's
of our?
basically where we get majority of our things, because they're we call them tomorrow, they're ready.
Yeah, they're right.
They're one of the biggest companies, so, and I guess I could formally introduce myself. I'm Entrice Mitchell, so I'm the guy I'm responsible for the 570 miles of sanitary sewer lines, the 12,000 manholes, 350 miles of storm lines, and 7,250 manholes and 400,000 catch basins. So I'm the one that makes sure all the raw sewage gets to them. So we're the ones who repair. Huh? Oh, no problem. No problem at all. So we're the ones where a lot of the times when some people call and say they're having sewer issues in their basements, we're the company that usually they call, and we're the ones that have to go see it. So that's what I do.
How is are we having to buy a lot of replacement manhole covers? I know a while back they were stealing them for the price of,
No, they're not doing it
We're not
anymore
doing it
because
anymore.
they stopped it. They stopped letting these companies, the junkyards, no longer accepted them.
okay.
So for a while they were accepting them, but no, we're not. We're not having any issues with those no anymore. The biggest issue we're having, you guys, with is, I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with this, but I know you guys are familiar with Fast Start. Fast Start?
Okay.
That's the name that they gave with all the water lines that had to be replaced. Well, majority of the water lines that they replaced in the city, you guys, they broke the sewer lines. So, because what happened is, in the old days, they trenched water and sewer lines together. Well, when they were replacing the water lines, they were breaking sewer lines. So from the time I've started, from 20 of October, we've repaired 814 house leads. That's people not knowing.
How are those, that was my question.
Please.
How do you know that they're broke?
So we have what you call a camera truck. It's called a CCT camera truck. It's able to ride into our main line.
But are they randomly doing that? Like if they broke mine and it was slowly leaching out into the road under, 15 feet underground, 10 feet underground, how would we ever know that?
So what's happening is, you guys, it's a lot of people, it doesn't happen. So what happens?
Sinkholes? We gotta wait for a sinkhole?
Exactly. And some people, what they would do is they would go and they'll keep calling American Sewer. They'll open it, but the water will suck it in. They'll open it, but it'll suck it in. Then pretty soon you'll see a big sinkhole. And that's what ends up happening. We've had to replace house leads that had mud flaps on them. Oh yeah, you'll be amazed at some of the stuff we see, from repairing house leads. I mean, the Fast Start was a beautiful thing, but it destroyed our department. It shot my budget. I mean, we never accounted for having to replace house leads. That just wasn't in our budget. But we can't tell a resident, no, we can't fix your house lead because we don't have the budget, And so
I'm glad that you mentioned that, because now I got to point the finger at Mr. Brown. We allegedly hired Roe to be professionals and supervise and monitor and be all things project management for the upcoming Fast Start stuff. So what are we doing? How are they monitoring this so Entrice doesn't have to go out and repair?
Okay, sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good.
Okay, one of the things that we've done is when Roe does that, the company that we have in their contract states that they have to go and televise the sewer line before they do their work and after they do their work. So we know that they didn't do anything to that sewer line. That wasn't being done years ago. Some of these, we're finding out 3 years ago, they did it, and when there was nobody oversight for that type of what's going on, we've learned our lesson, and so we now have them TVing. The TV camera that he says, we can put it in a manhole, run it down the sewer main. It can stop at a person's lateral house leak coming in, and then we have a second camera that can come off of that and go up it. And I'm not sure how many feet.
it can go,
Oh, you're just
So-
bragging now?
Yeah. So long enough to be able to go up and see, is there a break? And then from that break, we can tell usually why it was broken. So we can say, okay, the water line's right there. This is where they dug for the water line. Here's a water box. Right next to it is a broken sewer. But again, those were from companies previous, and these are all, and they're showing up now like 2-3 years later because they did put a mud flap over it, or they put something over it that's now degraded enough that the soil is able to get in and create plugs.
So are we budgeting any dollars for that now, or are we still just being reactive and fix them as they come up?
We budgeted, we did budget for it. We did budget for it.
How many
Yes.
of those are we budgeting for a year?
Now, that's kind of a
Ish?
ish. I'm hoping we can cut it completely in half. That's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping for half.
From what numbers last year?
From 600,
600 last year?
yes.
Good Lord.
Oh, you would be amazed. Like a lot of the times when you guys see sinkholes, that's something bothering the sewers. 99% of the time, if you see a sinkhole, it's infiltrating. It could be a small hole like this, but it's infiltrating into there and it's sucking water and it's sucking the dirt. It's sucking everything that's there is sucking around, and that's why you see undermines. That's why you see things like you may see if you've seen over on 12th Street where we had the bus collapse. The bus went inside the hole. Well, what happened was the sewer was a hole in it. And it was just running and running and running, and finally the bus went in and it collapsed. But when we dug it, it was just, all we had to do was repair it.
Point of information.
What's your point?
So what are we doing to hold these companies accountable?
So they were only accountable for 1 year. So after the year, we're on the hook. And that's where we come in. That's where our budget is getting blasted at for repair. You know, like technically, we were supposed to be, we've been, by Eagle, per Eagle, we should now be cleaning 500 catch basins every 2 weeks. But because we can't clean the catch basins because we're on the hook for making sure the residents' house leads are fixed. So it's been trying times for us. I mean, to be honest, it's been trying. We've been getting it, but it's been trying.
So while we're on the topic of fixing repairs,
Yes.
my colleague mentioned the Court Street, and I believe that was an MDOT project. So who was responsible for these leaks?
I could let you go ahead and discuss. The stuff on Court Street, the breaks that occurred and all of that, that has all been taken care of by the company that was laying the water line. They were given
So
the
we
job to
back-
fix their breaks in that line because it was still under warranty with them. So all of that work is being done by them for water. And if it involved a sewer line, then they were responsible for fixing the storm lines and the sanitaries also. When you put in a new water line like that, you have to make sure that all the leads are replaced, and if that interferes with any sanitary or storm, some of the sanitary is covered, or all of it is, but usually they leave pretty much alone. They don't try to mess with anything unless it breaks because they hit it or moving through. The storm work, there's a lot of storm work that gets done on roads and revamping when we do redo the curves and curb lanes, so that is taken care of also by the company.
So if we hire certain stuff out and there's an emergency and we have to deploy our people, are we back charging if they're under contract for the time and?
If they don't respond, then we go out and get it done. That's actually a better one for our water team that will come up next.
Okay.
In half an hour, approximately. But that'll be a better information for them because they've lived through it. As Councilwoman knows, I came in here in March of 21 is when I started. I've got 14 months in now. And I got the very tail end of that. And we made some adjustments. We had them change the way they did it, and then they did the other side of court, and we haven't had a problem with it. So, again, they are responsible for the work that was done, and they had a timer of a year to make sure there were no problems with it.
Okay. Just to recap, if you can just give me the 21 expenditure numbers.
Yep.
And if possible, just give me what that capital improvement, what projects we have budgeted.
Which we're done?
Yeah, $3 million even seems like a dartboard throw, so I want to know exactly what we plan on doing with that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Mays?
Yeah, good to see you, Dad.
Good to see you.
Was you here when AECom was here?
Yes.
AECom, that group was using them cameras.
Yes, a few of them were, and it was hit and miss. It was a lot of hit and miss. I know some of the times we were able to call them and ask them, you know, what happened here, and they would be able to say, hey, listen, we told them that it was roots in their line, or we told them, but once a lot of the companies left, we weren't able to, there was no way for us to say, hey, let's call AECom.
Yeah, because I went on site on Pasadena and a couple
Yes.
of streets, and I watched the sewers being repaired.
Yes.
After the lines had busted them, and I know that activity
Yes.
of repairing was going on. And we criticized whether or not they should have had more than a year warranty.
I don't disagree with that one.
Yeah, 100%. It should have been more than a year warranty.
Right.
We discussed that. That was a mistake, and it might be a mistake going into these service line repairs with road if we don't get that straightened out.
I agree.
But I agree that we should take care of the residents when that happens. My general question, Mr. Brown, is this. How much of, you described yesterday your fund as an enterprise fund, correct?
Yes, the transportation is an enterprise fund, as is water and sewer.
I understand. But how much of your budget is general fund, if any?
None that I know of.
Zero that you know of. I want you to double check that. I want you to double check and see if any of your budget, even the administration, I want to find out how much of it is general fund. Normally, in some cases, you have a mixture. You know something, ma'am?
I was gonna say, if you wanna know how much they're charging, you have to look at the line item for shared cost allocation. And that line item will pay the rest of the city's administration for the work they do for the enterprise fund. So there's a shared cost allocation line item for both water and sewer.
And I can understand that, and it might be in other folks' budget.
It's in every budget.
Every budget you believe have shared costs from the general fund. That's what you're saying. I don't.
It
They're
goes to-
saying
it
they
goes-
don't.
They take, there's basically charges to the sewer fund for the allocations of use of people in the general fund. And it goes to the general fund. So there's nothing that's coming from general fund to the enterprise fund. It's going the opposite way.
And that's what I want to clear up. I want to make sure that with these fund balances that I constantly see in these funds, that they're not pulling from the general fund. Now, I'm hearing you say it's going back the other way.
Right.
We'll talk about that next. But right now, I'm looking at whether or not any general fund allocations are supplementing anything in these enterprise funds.
There is no general fund expense in the water pollution control budget at all. We have no appropriations or allocations from the general fund coming to water pollution control.
And Mr. Brown, in your budget, as far as DPW, how much of it is general fund? Any?
None.
Zero.
As far as I can tell, what I've seen, yes, sir.
I want you to double check by the
Okay.
time we get for callbacks. In your whole department, I want to see if you're self-funded through these enterprise funds, including your salary.
No, I am funded fully out of the enterprise funds.
And so I want to find out if everybody in that organization and department, if it's any general fund. And I'm looking at that because of the constant fund balances, which is good, but I want to see if we can pull any general fund money back.
There, as I said, I'm 99.5% sure that there is no general fund monies going into utilities, period.
Yeah,
Or streets.
We'll
Because we are
go.
enterprise funds, they have to be separated. There is some monies that go from our fund back to pay for such as services for our HR department, et cetera. And that's a set cost.
Okay, well, I want you to double check that 0.5% and see was there.
Good point.
Sometimes 0.5% can be 500,000 or $1 million. By the time we get to the call back on May the 12th, hopefully you'll have that information.
I should have that information to you before next week.
Good, I want it. Now let's go to what you were saying, going out of the enterprise funds to others. Do y'all have that information?
The shared cost allocation formula is actually set by finance. We have very little to nothing to say about those numbers.
Okay, well, I'm always have something to say about
I
numbers.
would say we don't, and
I
I know
heard.
it's been scaled back over the years because there was a period of time where previous administrations would use water and sewer funds as a slush fund.
I'm
and-
familiar with that
Right,
activity.
so they've scaled it all back.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that activity, and Mr. Neely keep referring to the previous administration. It was before that.
Yeah, it was before that.
That's what got us in the emergency manager situation because of the water fund. Folks had borrowed money. The previous administration, with the RTAP, the emergency managers, and Weaver and them, I wish he would quit just saying that wrong information because we had to fix that. We had to fix that and stop that practice. And that was way before he had got here.
Right, under Huey, the previous finance
Huey
director.
Newsom.
Huey Newsom was one of the finance directors that actually made a valiant effort to stop that, and Scorsone reinforced that when he was here as well.
Yeah, I was finance chair of this council at the time, working with Huey Newsom. We did a fine job. He did a fine job. And I just vehemently oppose bad information being put out on work that folks do. But what I want to get is the amounts of money going back the other way, if we can. Do you see it there? Let's see what it is.
Well, this is retiree health care. Yeah, it's, well, they have cost allocation, pension, OPEB, supplies, operating expenses for the cost allocation. And for FY '24, they have 4.8 million. In FY '23, they have 4.538 million.
About what in 23?
4.538.
Now, if I had to guess, and I don't want to guess, I want to see that itemized. For example, some might go to finance, some might go to customer service, so forth and so on. That would be a fair guess.
Right, but you'd have to get that from finance, because we've never seen that either.
You've never seen that either.
No.
I don't see our staff here. I'll make a mental note, and as soon as I get up out of this chair, I'll go make a formal note in order to try to get that itemized breakdown.
Yeah, there's a formula, but like I said, we've never seen it. We've asked for it, but we've never been given that
Yeah,
formula.
it's just like the master fee schedule. I had one of my colleagues ask about who sets the master fee schedule. We set the master fee schedule. And as far as financial formulas and things of that nature, we might very well have something to do with that as well. So I want to get those requests. Mr. Brown, can you make a note that I want an itemized list of that $4 or $5 million going out and where it go to and that type of information? By the time we get to
I was going to say, that's probably a finance thing, but I will request.
Yeah,
it.
I understand. And so I'll request it, you request it, and maybe we'll get it by the time we have to make some decisions. Beg your pardon?
I said, good luck, I've been asking for it for years.
Well, sometime, you know, not by myself, but nobody does nothing by themselves, but sometime I might have a little more leverage, and we might can get it, and we'll share it with you as well. I think that's important as we try to block look like a projected $15 million deficit. Your department look like it's doing good. I remember when you came on, ma'am. And I remember them projects, and I'm listening to you. I was listening even though you didn't see me here. I've been listening since the beginning of the meeting. I've been knowing this guy for years and didn't know it was him from looking at the video. And so that's a good thing to see you here and working in the capacity. I feel comfortable getting information from you. So, ma'am, you've been doing good with some of those repairs that we funded. I listened at the summary of projected cost savings for the new equipment and the turbos and the 17.5 or whatever horsepower and all that. And yeah, so that's a blessing. I felt good when you first came on board. And so keep up the good work. Along the way in the budget, looking at your department, look like y'all doing good. And it look like if you need money, you know where to come and ask for it. I don't like the administration and financing folks getting in the way of departments and people asking for what they need. Just slip me an anonymous note, and they'll never know where it came from if I tell you that. But keep up the good work. We're going to see if we can get them cost allocations. And then once I get them, I'll see in my mind, do they need to go up or down or whatever. But I'm watching that balance. I'm watching that beginning year balance and ending year balance. And as I try to do a good budget going into the next year, I'll look at it. But don't get scared. If y'all having a fund balance of 4 and 5 million consistently, and I heard that you always want to be prepared for emergencies, don't be scared if you see me up them allocations $1 million and move $1 million or try to move $1 million here or there. We always on standby, should be, with a banking account. When Huey Newsom was here, $24 million fund balance. In less than 2.5, 3 years, I'm seeing folks then dissipated it down to where we facing a projected $15 million deficit. We have the opportunity to fix that this year and next year. Mr. Brown, that's my two main questions. I want to see, check that 0.5%. I believe y'all all seem pretty strong. That you said you're 99.5% sure no general fund influx and nothing to do with your department. And then I will help you and you will help me get the outgoing allocations itemized. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, now I have my questions.
I missed three.
Yes,
I might come back and I might not, but it's, may I be excused?
yes, you may. You plan on coming back, maybe? No problem, just let me know.
Should never have been a problem.
Okay, so we are down, my big thing right now is staffing levels, you know. These water operators or the sewer operators, I got it written down, the senior operators, are they part of the 1600 union? Or are they none? Okay,
Yes, they are.
okay. And what is the national average pay for those positions? Do you know? I know we just did a study, but I don't know.
We don't have the national average pay for those. Like I said, that it's wrapped up in the job study, and that's part of the reason why the job study was initiated, because we requested a reorg, and they said they wanted to verify the wages that we were asking for.
Okay, because I have seen these positions being advertised for years, and we need to have them filled. And if that means that we have to move them up in, through the contract, then that's what we might need to do, because I'm sure we could probably save that money in overtime.
We have asked for that, and we know they're behind by at least $7 an hour. And majority of the positions at our location are behind, and within utilities, the wages are behind significantly. So, I mean, we had several contracts of concessions, then we had contracts of stagnant wages. And so, with the rate of inflation and how things are now, our wages are way behind.
So we're looking at, if it's $7 an hour, that's 14,000 a year difference.
Right, but we have a plan to pay for it. So we would eliminate another vacant position and distribute those responsibilities to other employees along with those wages, so that you wouldn't necessarily see a budgetary increase. And it would reduce the fringe allocation as well.
Right. I'm all about the money. So right now, so for 2022, you're budgeted 36 positions, but you have 7 vacancies?
That was, the explanation for that is we had a reorg, and we were supposed to eliminate positions and then add 2 back. So currently, with those 2 positions, and at the start of FY '23, we will have 7 vacancies.
Okay, so you're asking for a total of 38 positions, of which only 31 of them are filled?
Correct.
Okay. That makes me,
Currently.
right, I understand that. Okay.
Yeah, well, and like I said, we have, it's very hard to get candidates based on the wages. So we may get someone who's interested and skilled. Once they figure out how much the city's offering, they don't even call back. They don't even respond.
Well, I can understand that. I've mentioned that before in council, the accounting position that was open with 4-year degree and experience, $28,000.
And honestly, if they don't move on this reorg in a timely fashion, we're gonna lose more employees that are even higher skilled, and those positions are even more difficult, because the county actively recruits for our employees to the point where they actually come to our building and try to recruit for our employees. It has happened more than once, and it has happened in the last 6 months.
We
So,
need to lock those doors so they can't come in.
we share a complex. They'll say they're right across the street, literally next door, but,
That's on Linden Road, right?
Linden and Beecher, yeah.
Yep.
So there is a problem with competition from outside industry with our employees, because most of our positions are highly skilled, require a lot of education, training, and experience, and some of them are journeyman's positions. So when you add it all up, it's very valuable for us to have, because our maintenance department has reduced the amount of outsourcing that we have to utilize, because they're able to complete tasks of expensive projects in-house without going to a contractor. And without those people, and then we'd have to go to a contractor, and we'd pay them minimum 4 times more to do the same job that our employees can perform.
What do you see us, the council, doing to help you fill those positions? What can we do to help you?
The only thing that can be done is to reclassify and reallocate money for these positions. So you have to reclassify them to a higher pay wage so that it could be more marketable.
And that would have to be done through the bargaining unit.
Not necessarily, it would be a combination of the bargaining unit and the administration. The bargaining unit, I'm pretty sure, through my conversations, would sign off on most things as long as the wages are fair and equitable. And so the hurdle would be more of getting the administration to agree.
So that is something that I think, especially for a situation like this where we are mandated by federal government, and the positions are being funded by the enterprise fund, I think that's something that we need to do, and do it quickly.
Because we have minimum staffing requirements,
Right,
so.
right. And I think that that's something that we need to do. And that's what, main thing that I've seen across the board here. I wish we had more detail in your budget requests, because we don't know what all these what are all in these line items. Do you have any temporary employees right now, like contracts?
We have,
And I'm talking about agency type people, 2 of them?
no, at our facility, we don't have any temporary agencies. We just have retirees back on personal service agreements that are filling in slots that, you know.
And
where
how
we
long
have
are they
ex-
going to want to work?
That's the problem, is that we have one that is ready to go any day now, because he's also the same person that takes care of the golf courses at Mott Park. So he leaves work at our facility and he goes mows all that for free. And so, and. Yes. He's knocking on 70's door, but he has energy like the Energizer Bunny. But the point is that we don't know how long we're going to have these additional employees available to train other employees and to give them the wisdom that they have from their experience. So, and honestly, because of the fact of our employee numbers have been reduced over the years, many of the positions have had to take on other duties. You know, we used to have a facilities engineer. We don't have that position anymore. We had to distribute those responsibilities amongst other employees, and they were never compensated for it. So we went from roughly 70 employees down to 38 in 10 years
Wow.
without significant pay increases.
Okay, well, let's see what we can do about that, kicking the administration in the back end
Yeah.
and see if
Well,
we can't get them moving on that.
And to be fair, they are trying to do some concessions with us in this respect, but it hasn't gotten to the point where we're satisfied.
When you sit there and you've got vacancies that are mandated to be filled, and they're vacant for 5 to 6 years, something's wrong and something's got to change. So let's see what we can do about that, and maybe we can get those positions filled for you with maybe even experienced operators, you know?
That would help, because we have a lot of employees who will be eligible for retirement at the same time. So in about 5 years, 50% of our current employees will be eligible for retirement. And I can't see any of them having an incentive to stay.
I'm getting near that retirement age myself, so
Yeah.
I-
So I'm one of those people, and I can tell you, if I retire today, you're gonna replace me with 3 people.
yep, I understand.
And that's why we brought her along.
Because she's so good.
Yes, she is.
Okay. What was your name again?
Crystal Wallace.
Crystal Wallace, and then Jeanette Best, and Therese Mitchell.
And Treese Mitchell.
Okay. Okay.
And you will notice that I try to bring up the people that can give the answers to, because I don't have all of them, and they have more institutional
Mr.
knowledge
Brown,
than
you
I have.
never have answers for us.
Oh,
so-
don't start that. Okay, can we switch now?
Yes,
or
we can.
To water and sewer switch out?
Yes, water and sewer
Madam Chair, I
switch
just
out.
have
If there's
one.
any questions, just,
I got one follow-up, one question. And this may not be a question for you, it may be a question for finance. If you were fully staffed and fully waged, whatever that dollar is, may there be every, 10, 15% raise across the board, is that less than what you're budgeting for overtime?
Our budget includes the reorg analysis that we created. So if you gave each employee at our facility a roughly $4 an hour raise, it's already budgeted by the elimination of other budgeted positions that we don't need. Because we want to eliminate the position of pumping station operator. So we would take that salary, spread it amongst other employees, and then one of our instrumentation,
Our budget actually includes the vacant positions, just in case we can hire somebody. So it would,
Well, you're-
it would significantly reduce overtime.
That's,
Yes.
So if we did a pay rate increase, filled the positions, yes, the money is currently in the budget and available.
I'm just overall thinking, if we got everybody up to scale where they should be, and we're able to fill those positions, would the city save money in the overall by not expending all the overtime dollars?
Right, because of the fact that just with 2 vacancies in the operator positions, that is 80 shifts of overtime per week that is open and vacant. Not including vacation replacements, people are maxed out because they're not taking time off because they can't, and we don't have enough people. So they're maxed out on their PTO time, so some people have to take off one day every other week so that they don't lose their accrual. I mean, there's a lot of issues, involved. But yes, it would reduce overtime. But, with the vacancies, yeah, you have 40 hours per person. So for every vacancy, that's 40 hours of overtime that someone else is picking up.
Did you budget the benefits as well, like health insurance into this budget for the additional staff?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, the fringes, yeah. And we budget our vacant positions at step 6 with this 5th-year pay at the highest level available in the training series, so that if a person comes in with more experience, we will have sufficient funding for that position.
Any other questions from any council people? Okay, we can go to the next. And thank you very much. We appreciate your help in answering our questions.
You're free.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you, you too.
Water fund is number 591. The following pages, guys. in case you- Oh,
Yeah. Come on, Paul.
okay, you can go ahead and you have the floor. You and
Okay,
your
I
staff.
will again relinquish, but again, this is the water side. This is from when we take water from GLEWA and GCDC water supplies, all coming out of Lake Huron, comes through the water plant. We test that water. We then add chemicals to it to make the correct amount of chemicals and balance before it's sent into our water distribution system. Then from the water distribution system, it goes to everyone's home, and we keep up the mains, we keep up the service lines, or parts of the service line from the main to the curb. That valve is ours. After that's the homeowners, but then we also go in and do repairs on them, and for a fee to replace the meter, or if something breaks in the house, they'll call. I was going to make a comment earlier, and I kind of forgot about it for sewer, but there's 2 phone numbers that we need to write down. If you have a sewer emergency, sewer backup in your home, sewage coming into your home, or you see a manhole with sewage coming out of it, we ask you to make a phone call. And the phone call is to area code 810-766-7079. That is a system that is monitored 24/7, and we'll get somebody out there as quickly as we possibly can. We have a second shift group that goes till 10 o'clock or so. At night, we start at 7 in the morning. So during those times, and then we have somebody on call for the other times. If you have a water emergency, if you see a water main break on Court Street, if you see, or anywhere else, water coming up and it's clean water pouring up out of the street, pouring up out of the sidewalk, anywhere in that area, or if you happen to have a problem at your house where one of the kids hit the pipes and broke it, and you can't shut it off inside your house, we have the ability to shut off from the outside, and we ask that you would call. The phone number is area code 810-766-7202.
I've had the sewer line in my phone for years.
Okay. The other thing that I ask is if you just have an overall question, whether it's water and sewer or DPW, we have an email. It's water, the word water, all lowercase, at cityofflint.com, all lowercase, and just go ahead and leave a message, or a text, or an email, excuse me, and I will make sure that it gets taken care of, or at least addressed, because I keep a log of all of them that come in and when they're resolved. And I want to make sure that our residents have the information, questions answered. For any questions they have, I'll get the information to get it to them, or get them to the right place. And I've done that and sent them to other departments because they don't know. Go ahead, ask, I'll do what I can. Or my department will do what it can. I shouldn't always say I do, but it seems that way. I will now first let Scott Dungy from the water plant discuss the water plant a little bit more detail of what I just said. And then I will have Paul Simpson is our water distribution supervisor. And I'll let him talk about his area and then ask you for your questions. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Scott Dungy. I work at the City of Flint Water Plant. Been there since November '99. The water plant is responsible for treating all of the water that comes into the city. We used to always have one water source. It was Detroit for many years, and then they changed names. Now they are called Gliwa. The backup water source was always the water plant itself. The Flint River was the water source, but that is no longer usable. So they looked at a different water source, and the closest one was Genesee County. They were in the process of building a brand-new water plant and a new pipeline from Port Huron. So once that was built, the state or the city worked out a deal to get Genesee County to be the secondary water source. So one of the big projects, capital improvement, was building that pipeline, getting that water source to the Flint water plant. So that has been finished. They do have the pipe in the ground. We do have water going through it. We transitioned to that water, the back secondary water line for the last 2 or 3 months while we did some repairs on the old water line. Gliwa had been in service since 1969. It needed some repairs on controlling that water flow. So to do that, we had to completely shut it down. So we shut that down, transitioned to GCDC for the last 3 months, fixed this, and now we transitioned back. So now we're back to 95% Gliwa and 5% GCDC. That's just enough water to keep it nice and fresh and ready to go at any time. So that give us a good quality backup water source. The second project that we did was, for years, Gliwa water, we didn't have to treat it. But after the water crisis, they did a full study on the city of Flint, chemistry, water, piping, and all that, and they determined that we're going to have to augment the water somewhat. So the state mandated that we build a brand-new chemical feed building that would inject the 3 main chemicals. First, we needed to put a anti-corrosion or chemical in the pipe, which was phosphoric acid. Once it mixes, it turns to orthophosphate, and that coats the plumbing. So we had to introduce that first. Then, due to some of the Legionella and the different things that had happened due to the chlorine residual out there, they mandated that we added more chlorine than what Gliwa or GCDC does, so we have to add that now. With them 2 chemicals, they changed the pH of the water, so in turn, we had to add a 3rd chemical to adjust the pH of the water. So currently, we have a brand-new chemical feed building that has been in service for 3-4 months now. It's been feeding the 3 brand-new chemicals. We were able to save a little money by going to a brand-new building that has bulk storage. So we can have a tanker come in and bring us 4,000 gallons instead of buying a little plastic tote. Them little plastic totes with the metal wires around them, they hold about 340, 370 gallons. But when you buy little small containers, you pay more money. It's got to be hauled in by a semi, and then we got to use a forklift to get them out. So it's tremendously more amount of money. So that is going to save us money by buying bulk. A part of that was also to update our automation. Get us from the old 1969 era of time of manually doing everything, multiple employees. So the main purpose of refurbishing this water plant was to automate it more and possibly cut our staffing down. So as the automation is increased, we have been able to cut our staffing down. Some of the misconception was they thought we could get rid of a lot of the staff. So we are understaffed right now. We're trying to get some of the staff back, but we have the same problems. We have, you know, we're not quite paying quite enough to retain the employees. One thing that happened when the new water plant was built, Genesee County took 7 or 8 of our employees. They took our instrument tech, they took 5 or 6 operators because they paid more. So they all left. We lost 3 people to Saginaw Water Department. We lost 2 people to Lansing Light and Board. I mean, I could go on and on. We left us with a bare bones staff. Former administration thought automation, you could run the water plant with 7 or 8 employees, but that is not the case. Because no matter what, automation helps us, it's great, but it does fail at times. And if it does fail, we still have to maintain these numbers and chemicals that are leaving that plant. So we do have a minimum staff, like Mike said, there's a person there 24/7 year-round. He is operations foreman. He has the ability to call operators at any time if we need additional staff. People can come in, pardon me? On off shifts. You know, day shift, we have all the maintenance staff there and so they're available then. But on the second and third shift, it's just operations foreman. So if he runs into any issues, he will call somebody in to fix it, get the systems working, or figure out whatever's going on. So, you know, we're in the process of trying to slowly restaff the water plant with the staffing that we feel it needs now. We were budgeted for 18 people. We have 13, so we're five short. We have a full lab that checks the chemistry 7 days a week to make sure all the processes are working correctly. We used to always maintain that. That was 3 people, a lab supervisor, 2 lab techs. After the crisis, everybody left. That staff left. So we had to contract it out. So that is formally contracted out to F&V. They had signed a 5-year contract. We have 1 more year to go. We're hoping to do a little movement. There are some staff that I have that used to work in the lab. They moved to operations to help that out, but now that we have more operators, they're willing to move back to the lab. So here in the next month or so, we're going to start trying to get the lab back to try to eliminate that contract at the end of the 5 years. You know, it is tough because we haven't budgeted. You know, the former administration cut the budget, and when them jobs left, they eliminated them jobs out of it. They were on a firm belief that we didn't need them. You know, so it is hard to try to get HR, you know, to say, well, you know, I need this job back. You know, so they have been slowly doing it as we needed it, but it's tough. Yes.
I'm going to add one more to that, and that is that the state has given us a mandate
Yes.
of things that we have to do and have to get our system up and running correctly. They oversight us. The state and the EPA are on meetings constantly with us and different groups throughout the city. One of the things that they have is that a report was done in 15, Arcadis?
2018.
Or 2018, excuse me. Our Arcadis report was in 2018, and they are looking at that, and from that, it tells us what extra positions that they felt the city needs to add at that time to our complements, which includes people in the in Treasury, having a bigger group there to handle questions and such, more people out at the Water Service Center or the water plant to get other jobs that aren't getting done as often as we would like. Mr. and Therese Mitchell talked about the sewer and not getting enough catch basins cleaned out, because you're supposed to do that every so many years, every 5 years, I think it is, you have to go throughout the whole city and clean every single one. And there are things that sometimes get missed because we don't have enough bodies and enough people. So that's out there too, and we have to balance that against our current budget, against our current people. Just so you know, if we come and ask, that's one of the reasons, if, you know, for some of the mandates and things that come to us. Okay, we are now going to go to our water distribution.
Hello, my name is Paul Simpson. I am the supervisor at the Water Service Center. I have been with the city for 31 years, 27 in water. I took over this department in September of 2020. Like everybody else, we have staffing issues. Surprise, surprise. And yes, I have seen a couple of you. I've seen you on Court Street. Mr. Murphy, I know I spoke with you on the phone regarding emergencies. So we handle everything from the water plant to your home. So that's considered the water distribution system. That has 600 miles of water main of all sizes from 3-inch all the way up to 36-inch in some areas. We maintain mostly 24-inch and smaller. There's 6,000 valves, and them are to help isolate the areas when we do main breaks from one end of the block to the other. There's 4,500 fire hydrants in the city. We do have the on-call phone at night, so the 810-766-7202 is a very important number to call. I have the phone. I do answer the calls. So since January 1st of 21, we've had 750 emergency calls after hours. Just so you understand what we have going on besides our daily work. These are calls that I get at night. These are from emergency staking requests for another utility. So a telephone pole got hit, somebody ran over a fire hydrant, they may need us out there to shut the water down. You've probably seen that a few times. Consumers calling for the poles, electrical, gas, so various calls that we get. For the customer emergencies, basement, broken plumbing in the house, water running out of the basement, you name it. And we handle all that. So, we have fire hydrants, valves, main breaks that we handle last year. In the last year and a half, we've done 350 main breaks. A lot of them being in the wintertime when everybody else is at home sleeping. And warm, yeah, very warm. So along with that, we have the Fast Start program, the line replacement program. So we have to have inspectors out there for that to try to make sure that the contractors are doing what they're supposed to be doing. Things have gotten a lot better in the last 3 years versus when it first started. You've heard some of the issues with Mr. Mitchell and the contractors boring through the sewer lines. We also are state mandated to sampling, lead and copper sampling by Eagle and EPA. We have the NRDC and the Pastors Coalition lawsuit that's against the city, so we are required 2 periods between January 1st and June 30th to get 60 samples from residents and businesses, and 30 of them being in from May 1st to June 30th. And that starts all over again from July 1st to December 31st. 30 of them have to have 60 samples in that period, 30 of them coming in the warm months, July and August. That we have to beat that goal, or we lose the lawsuit. So we are out there continuously trying to get residents to help us out with the sampling. So that's where you all come into play. So your constituents that still have galvanized or lead lines, it'd be very helpful if they would participate in the sampling process. And at some point, get their line replaced. So if I could express that, I could express that even more, because what's going to happen is at the end of this year, when the funding is done, if your line breaks somewhere between the curb and the house, it's going to be $5,000 out of your pocket, not the city's. The city's going to be responsible for anything that happens between the main and the curb. So if we could express that to some of these residents, that would be very helpful, and that'd help us get through this process as well, because this program's supposed to be done the end of this year. So with that being said, it's very important and critical to get as many of these lines replaced as possible, because once the funding's gone, then we're up. You're responsible, we're responsible. Something happens out in the street, it's going to cost the city money. We know we don't have money for all that. So, if we can get everything paid for now, we'd take advantage of it, for sure. The meter change program. I'm sure that some people are real happy about that, but that's also Eagle mandated. We were supposed to have this process done, and we're working on it. Unfortunately, we've had to go to the mailing out the final notice letters. It's very important to get these meters changed as part of our process, as part of our requirement. So the sooner we can get these taken care of, the better as well. Unfortunately, we've had to turn some people off because they don't comply, or they say they don't get a letter. Prior to this final notice, when Vanguard was in here, the contract company, their first round, they mailed out 3 letters and then went to the door. And then last February, they extended the contract for another $236,000, and they did the same process. We didn't gain a whole lot of ground on that. So it was pretty much wasted money as far as I'm concerned. So that's 8 attempts just with them. So now we're mailing out the letter. This is 9, and then sometime in between all that, we were going to some houses unannounced just to see if we'd have any luck getting in. So some people have had 10 or 11 attempts. So, you know, as far as that program goes, that's something that we need to get completed too, because this has been ongoing for 2.5 years. We should have been done already. I know the pandemic didn't help, and unfortunately, that's a sad case there. I'm sure we've all lost somebody from that, but now we're kind of getting back to, I don't know if you want to say normal, whatever that is, but some kind of regular program here, so we got to get back to business and get some of the stuff wrapped up and take care of it, because it's taken away from our daily activities and some of the other services, and unlike, just like everybody else, we're short-staffed. Some guys don't mind overtime. It's not like it was when I came here. They used to fight for it. Now you can't give it away, so, you know, same thing. So I think
Miss-
that's about all I have right now.
Mr. Murphy wanted to begin.
Thank you. So we knew, some of us think we know, some of us may not know. Could you explain to us what the WIN funds was for? How much we received altogether, and how much is left of the WIN funds? And is it earmarked already for projects? I got a couple of questions on that piece right there, so I'll probably try to ask you, and you can try to figure out how you want to answer them. Was there projects already required through this lawsuit probably, or maybe when we, the emergency, the water crisis, were there projects that were mandated to do with the WIN funds? And was the Miller Road project one of those projects that was mandated to do in the WIN funds? Because I'm hearing that people believe that the WIN funds were available to do the Miller Road project. Was the Miller Road project part of the WIN funds, or was it not part of the WIN funds? That's my first part of the question. I don't know who can answer that.
Well, the WIN fund, of course, is our grants system, and there is 100 million, 167 million total. So about 100 million, I think it is from the WIN fund, and about 67 million from the state for doing the lead line replacements, and other monies were given to do upgrades throughout the system. There was money set aside for mains, for replacing mains, and certain mains that were actually given a project, such as DuPont was a project to be done. Other mains we were done because there was money set inside, about 10 million for what they called smaller and other mains. So that money came from that. When I got here, all of the monies in the mains except for one project had been spent. So, or had been allocated to be spent. So that means Court Street, I said DuPont, Atherton Road was done, Chavez, and a couple other small ones that were done. But that used up the monies that were set aside in the WIN funding for water main replacement, except for one group, so to speak, and that is the Northwest transmission line. That still has not been done, and there's money in that account for that.
Where is the Northwest?
It goes from the water plant to across going to the west to DuPont.
So is that?
Bishop and
I
DuPont.
think, if I recall, I think it go down either Wager Black Street to Bishop Street to DuPont. Is that somewhere up in that area? I believe.
Yeah, it goes down.
Say that
It
again?
goes down Bishop.
Bishop, yeah.
We do have some transmission main that cuts through from the water plant through the old Buick property that does turn and head west
So y'all
through
have
Wager
not,
as well, but that's something totally different from what he's
so y'all
referring
have
to.
not did that piece yet at all?
No, we didn't have time to get that done. There's another piece on there that we didn't do, that was money allocated for Cedar Street. It is a retention basin. The state wanted us to refurbish both of our retention basins. We started with the one on Dort, it's called our Dort, which is on the site of the water treatment plant, along with the other things going on at the water treatment plant. It was decided to do that first. We did the retention basin. We're currently in the process of getting the pump station, which was the second part of that to get done. And then there were monies that were budgeted, as I said, that have not been used yet. One is for Northwest, one is for Cedar Street. And that's when you hear me talking about wind funding, that's where I'm hoping to take those monies, being able to combine them, because the other project that's in that wind funding is lead line replacements and for getting restoration work done.
So my other question that I want to hear, was the wind funds, was the Miller Road project part of the wind funds dollars?
Well, some people would say, because money was set aside for water mains, but that water main, like I said, that water main money was already either encumbered or used when I got here back a year and 2 months ago, back in March of '21. So those were already set and gone. There wasn't money available for Miller. There isn't money available for Dort, or for Saginaw, for Under the Bricks. Those are the two that, again, we used the money that was allocated for mains
Okay.
on other projects that came up first, and we don't have the funds there to be able to put into Miller or
So
put into.
it made sense for us to use the ARPA dollars
Yes.
to fund the Miller Road project. My other piece is, because I got an email, and I think my colleagues got an email too, for the Welch Street project. I guess that's part of unfunded mains that possibly need to be replaced if that street was ever to get done. And based on what I just read today, that's a $21 million projected project to do Welch Street, and that's to tear it all the way up. And when you tear it up, you're gonna want to replace the main on Welch Street if y'all ever could secure the funding to redo Welch. So that may be another project that we may have to look at trying to find some funding. Is that?
Okay, it's correct from my city engineer from last night, talking to him today to send out that email. It's about $21 million, thereabouts, for redoing all of Welch and
Okay.
tearing the road all the way down. That doesn't include the water. That's
That-
just tearing the road down and rebuilding it to
Okay.
have a new road. If we were to go and do a milling and, top coat, to refurbish the street a little, that won't last 5 years. I think that was put into that note also. Because it will, you need to finish the base and fix the base under it, or else that will come through in a very short period of time.
My
But
other
that's our
que-
transportation. Sorry, sir.
My other question is, when you guys did the service line replacements of the homes, how did we get to the point to where 8,500 identified properties? So if we got $167 million and we replaced the service lines in these properties, how did the dollars was not set aside to do restoration
Well,
of those properties?
there's two answers to that, two parts to
Okay.
the answer. First part to the answer is when we started, we were supposed to do, I'm not sure if it was 15 or 18,000 homes, check them and replace ones that are found to have lead in them. That was the number originally. We've already checked over 26,800 plus homes. And that's because of the NRDC has been changing kind of moving the finish line and adding more things to it because they have that ability, and with the legal aspect that they have added more to us. But no monies have been added. We are just trying to work on the monies that were originally there to get it done. The second thing is that the previous, I don't know how to say it, but administration did not set up correctly. In other words, I'm good at hindsight. I'm not trying to say what they didn't do and their vision, what their vision was wrong, but we have these 8,500 that haven't been done. They had a company come in specifically. They were here when I first got here, and then they ran out of money, and they were doing restorations, but we didn't have anybody watching them. So what they said that they did, some of those things were homes that weren't on our list to get done. And that's a problem we have currently with the state, and because they won't pay for it unless they see that there was a line replacement and then there's a restoration. If they don't match up, that's on a list that they're not going to pay for.
So are you saying homes were dug up, but the service line was not replaced?
Yes, they were checked first. They were checked first to see, are they copper, lead, or galvanized? If they
So-
were lead or galvanized, they would be replaced.
So I know we was using hydrovac to check the lines, and then they did complete digs, because I believe that the hydrovac were missing some of the, and I think this was up under former Karen Weaver administration, where some of the hydrovac was missing the lines that really needed to be replaced. So they went down and looked, but then they may not have dug in the right spot. So therefore, maybe where they did the hydrovac and actually didn't show the lead line. But if you went 6 or 7 inches or feet further, you would probably get what you went down to look at. So is that the reason why they did the complete, former Mayor Karen Weaver, in her administration went to the full dig of digging the whole yard up because they were missing some lines? Is that accurate?
Yes, yeah, what happened was with the hydrovac, they're just doing a small section, and what had happened is, in the past, over all the years, during my time even, we've been to some of these residents, actually had to excavate the curb box, the shut-off valve out at the curb, because it was leaking or it wasn't working, so we would dig it up, we'd splice the valve in with some copper. We might go a few feet. So when they're hydrovacing, they're only doing a small area, so they're seeing copper on between the curb and the house, or maybe there was already copper on the house side as well. So it looks like that, as if that did not need to be replaced, but they didn't know that had been just a repair done there. So that was part of the complaint, was with the hydro excavation, that they weren't identifying enough of the line, so that's why they had went to just doing excavations, so they could expose,
So,
enough of the line. And even still, sometimes they were being missed then, because sometimes there was a larger repair there than even that.
So when they was doing the excavation, was that approved by the state for them to do the excavation and convert to excavating versus doing the hydrovac?
My understanding it was, but I was not in charge at the time. I was a foreman at that time, and I don't recall. So that really wasn't in my position to
Okay.
be a part of that.
So when they did so let me ask another question then. So when they were doing the 8,500 that homes that we still yet to complete the restoration. Was that 8,500 money set aside in the wind funds of the 167 million? Because what I'm trying to get to is it just do not make sense to me that we had $167 million of wind funds to replace service lines, and it don't take no rocket scientist to understand if you're gonna dig it up, you wanna fix it. So where did the ball get dropped where we have 8,500 properties that is not a set-aside allocated funds to restore? That's a lot of where did the ball, who dropped the ball on that? Like, how do we not have money out of $167 million to do restoration? Something happened, somebody messed up somewhere, in my opinion. So I just want to hear from you guys, where did the ball get dropped that we don't have the funds out of $167 million? I would like an answer to that, and I'm not sure if you guys could give me that, but I would like to hear.
Well, the wind fund was 100 million, and then there was money from the state, the 67 million. But all of that was, at that time, that council that was sitting here in these seats came and voted on and allocated those monies out into the different funds that are out there. I don't have my sheet in front of me, so I can't tell you how many projects, et cetera. With that sheet, I could tell you which ones got done, which ones didn't get done yet, which ones are in progress currently to finish, and, like Dort is being worked on right now. But the biggest problem I see is a couple. One, we had some contractors that weren't doing things the way that they should have been, and things were being missed, whichever way it happened, okay? The second is that we had a goal line of so many thousand, and then that line just keeps getting pushed further and further out. So the amount of money that they allocated to do the lead line replacements and to do the restorations was a set based on the 18,000 minimum, or a number that we started with. Since then, that number has expanded immensely. As I said, we've done almost 27 million, okay, or 27 million, 27,000, 26,880 some, okay, 27,384. My 8's in the wrong place. So, but 27,000. We were supposed to do. I'm just going to say 15 because I can't remember if it's 15 or 18. 15,000. So we're doing double, but no extra monies were put into there. So we've used up almost all the money that is there from the state for our lead lines, and from the money that the wind fund had set aside, an extra 10 million to go with the state's money, and that has been used. And now we're going to have to take from other projects there to put into to do restoration. Originally, hindsight's 20/20. Originally, it should have been a company comes in, does the dig, finds the dig, finds if it is or isn't. If it's not, they fill it back in, and then they do the restoration right then. If they have to go and do a line replacement, it's going to be more restoration. They may have to dig up in the street to get to the main. They may have to dig up in we've seen squares at the ends of driveways, because wherever that water valve was, they have to excavate that area. And it could be sidewalks, driveway, lawn, and street repair. If you put a cut in the street, you have to repair it correctly. So at that time, when they got the companies out here, from my understanding, because I wasn't here, they had them going out and doing the line replacements, and that we'll get to the restoration later. Then they had a company come in and they paid, I'm not sure how many $1 million went towards to Goyette, was in here doing restorations. They did restorations until a point that they were out of money in their contract, so they stopped. That happened shortly after I got here.
Okay.
And then since then, we've been trying to figure out how are we going to pay for this and how are we going to pay for anything that happens after the end of December.
Okay. If we
Hope that
can-
answers.
If we can, I would like to look and study the detailed budget of the 167 million. And I think this probably was prior to you getting, I'm sure prior to you coming on board, so I could see where the allocation of the funds actually went, like a spreadsheet to show, okay, this went towards the water treatment plant or something to do some chemical upgrades or whatever. I just would like to study that so I can get better educated of where the money at, because I ain't feeling, I'm gonna try to just leave that alone right now.
Can I ask you to stop in my office, sir?
My last question, and
Mr.
then I'm
Murphy?
gonna turn it over to my
Councilman
colleagues,
Murphy?
because yes.
Can I ask you to stop in my office and I can show you some of the information that I do
Yeah.
have on
I'll do
computer and
that.
such?
I'll do that.
I appreciate
Yeah.
it. You know where I am? I'm in the north building, first floor.
Yep, I plan on you taking me on a tour on the water treatment plant too.
I will do that, and wastewater.
Yeah, I will do
And
that.
set,
I don't
at
know
least
if
set
I-
them up and have the
I don't know if
knowledgeable
I want to
people.
be around no shit, but, you know.
Oops.
Point of order.
The poop plant,
Yeah.
okay.
Point, man.
My last question is, the 60 samples that you guys are taking, are we in compliance with the sampling of the 60 or the 30 in the summer and the 30 in the winter? Are we up to date? And how are those samples going? Are the feedback, I was on a study with Fatchett, testing for Legionella in Genesee County, so I was part of that team, me and Councilman Winfrey Carter. How are those, what is that quality of the water? Where is our quality of water at now today? For the residents who feel like our water is not safe, what message should we be giving them? Should we tell them our water, and this is something former Mayor Karen Weaver used to say, she used to be like, I'm not saying it's safe until it's tap drinkable. So today, is our water tap drinkable for people to drink from the tap water out their faucet? Can they turn their faucet on and drink the water?
Okay, to answer the first part of that question was about our sampling procedures. We have successfully done the 60 samples in the last 3 cycles, so the last year and a half. We have successfully done that. We've got down to the lead number, average number, least square average was, when I first got here, the first one I saw was 9. The last one, or the one before was, or the one after that was 6. And then this latest one went up to 7.
So could you explain to, because I'm clueless. I don't know what 9, 6,
Okay,
and 7
that's,
is.
those are parts per trillion, and we have to be under 15. To be under the federal mandate, you have to have less than 15 parts per billion. So we are doing that in our lead sampling. We sometimes have high ones, and those high ones, as soon as we get that test result, we send out our navigators here from the city to go out and talk with the homeowners and try to diagnose what the problem was, why they have such a high number. Sometimes it's a line, sometimes it's the faucets and fixtures that they have in their system. There are lots of different things, but we set out to try to correct that with them. I drink the water right out of my tap. I have for many years. But at the same time, I went and got there's a 2-kit bottle that you can pull out of the front what is it called? Right when you walk into City Hall on your right-hand side, there's a little kiosk area there, and there's a person there. They have bottles. I suggest anybody who has any fear or any thought about that the water's unsafe, to go and get those bottles. It tells you exactly how to take the sample, take it home, take the sample as it says, sign all your name on it, etc., bring it back. It is picked up twice a week. Samples are picked up by the state. They go off and do the testing, and they will mail back your results. I did it for my house in April, or in March, and before April, I received that I have 0 lead and a very small amount of copper, but well below the action levels.
So,
So I would tell people to do that, to test, to make sure they know what's coming out of their faucet directly. And if that number's high, then it's also reported to us, and we can send our navigators out there to try to help mitigate what that problem might be.
so do you believe that some of the homes that has tested positive for lead, is that a result of the water crisis to the point where we replaced the service line outside, but we did not do anything for people's homes and replacing those lines out in people's homes that got aging lead lines in their homes that may be a contributing factor of the water testing bad? And that's why some people feel like this emergency, this water crisis is not over, because on one part, we earmarked $167 million to do these upgrades and service line replacements, but we have not done anything for people's homes when it comes down to replacing out some of those pipes in people's homes. So until we address that situation, you guys can do whatever y'all do on y'all end. I'm not sure if that's a unresolved situation where people's homes, the lines in people's homes have not been replaced, and is that a contributing factor in your opinion?
I don't know if that's, one of the things that I need to add something to that. One of the things that we did, that the city did well before I came here, is we upped our corrosion control because we weren't putting enough corrosion control, and that's why one of the biggest reasons taking the Flint water out of the Flint River, there wasn't high enough corrosion control in the piping, so that the water was slightly corrosive, so it started eating away at whatever was on the pipe. Currently, we add a orthophosphate is the compound that will coat the inside of a pipe. It will coat metal, and we add enough, hopefully, that it puts a couple layers of molecules on top of the lead and the galvanized and the solder in your home, so that it does not leach out into the water that you're taking into your home. So that takes care of a good amount of it. The second is, but if you have a lead pipe, we don't ever know how well it's being done, how much water is going, how much water you use. So I can't go and tell you, yes, this home you can drink water at. I can tell you my home you can, because I've tested it, and I've tested it every couple of years. I test to make sure there's no change. Our water coming out of the water plant is safe to drink. If it picks up lead, though, because of someone's line, we found a huge amount of lead in a business at a church. It was over 3,000 parts per billion, and because come to find out they hadn't had anybody in the church that was stagnant water. It hadn't been ran correctly. It wasn't flushed, but once that sample was taken and sent to the state, it's gospel. So it goes against us. That's one of the reasons. We had a couple of different locations, either a church or businesses, that had high lead levels because of non-use, stagnated water. And once we had them start flushing, that number went way down. So if water just sits in a pipe, whether it's lead, anything else, after a while, you've lost the chlorine in it, so you can have bacteria growth over time. if it just sits there. If it's moving water, it's carrying everything with it and through, you don't have that type of problem.
Okay. And I'm not gonna ask y'all about any of budget, because I know one of my smart colleagues is going to get into the detailed budget, so I really didn't ask about any of this budget, because there was just a lot. Y'all department is very important to us. So I'm gonna turn it over to my chair, and I'm quite sure you guys wanna ask about the budget.
Mr. Pfeiffer?
Mr. Brown, I'm going to have the same questions that I did last time about, because this one is actually a $9 million deficit from revenue versus projected expenditures. So I'm going to need some clarity on that.
The water plant or the water service center?
Combination.
It's a
Combination.
it's a
Okay.
combination, all the above. I think we got total revenue of just under 30, but we have appropriations of 38.8. So,
As far as the water plant goes, we have been undergoing renovations for the last 2.5 years. Every bit of that is increased. So in 2018, the Arcata study that Mike Brown had mentioned earlier was mandated by the EPA in Eagle because of the water crisis. They came in and they looked at everything and said, you need to do a complete water study. So they mandated that with the consent order. So after they did that, that was a full range of looking at everything and seeing what we needed to do to make our system better, to get it up to modern standards, and to make it soluble and to be able to pay its bills. So they looked at our water plant and they wanted to automate. You know, our water plant hadn't been touched since 2000. In 2000, we borrowed $48 million to upgrade it to be a backup plant, and that was completed in 2006. So by 2014, when we went online for a couple of years. I mean, you know, in the water industry, a lot of that stuff is old, and it's just like a computer. After 5, 6, 7 years, it's old school technology. So, you know, we limped by during making water, but once we shut down, they evaluated, said, all your stuff is old, it needs to be updated. And, you know, by the way, due to what happened to your system, we want to monitor your system. So they mandated that we put 8 water quality monitoring panels throughout the city. These panels were very expensive. They're great as far as they monitor the water, real time, 24/7, with nobody being there. All that information is relayed right back to our operations center at the water plant. But these machines take reagents, they take man hours of people maintaining them. If you got the water running through it all the time and it's testing it, you know, the machines over time get plugged up and they get dirty and they have to be cleaned. So it added expenditures. We didn't realize how much expenditures that was gonna be, but, you know, I mean, my one budget just for one analyzer that analyzes the orthophosphate that puts the coating on our pipes, that machine itself, the PO last 2 years ago was $4,000. Last year, I went up to $9,000, and this year I went to $15,000. And then with all the other gadgets on this water quality monitoring panel, it's gonna cost us about $40,000 now to maintain it. You know, every day it seems like, oh, well, you gotta put this sensor in it. This sensor only lasts 6 months. This sensor only lasts 9 months, and you gotta replace them or they don't work, you know? So it's like, we're learning more of what it's gonna cost to maintain these machines
Sure.
as we use them.
sure,
So-
I can appreciate your answer, but at the same point, we can't have a $9 million deficit year over year over year. So
Right.
I think we just need to do the same exercise of what did we actually expend last year? I understand that this is
Estimated.
estimated contingency, emergency, whatever it is, with positions that are vacant and all of that. So I just want to make sure that somewhat of what our revenue is somewhat in line to what we spent last year, just so that make sure that we don't run a big deficit.
I would agree with that. The one thing that you do have to realize, though, is that we have a system that's built for 250,000 people.
Agreed.
And we only have 81 here running the system. And so we talk about having how much the water costs. We have a water study going on right now. We're trying to see what we can do to not cause increases, but still be able to, you know, have money coming in so that it matches what we need. There hasn't been a price increase that I know of in how many years? 3? 4?
Yeah.
And when I was first here, we went over 10 years without ever increasing it. We had a huge fund balance, and they said, oh, we'll just run the fund balance down, and to the point that the emergency manager came in because everybody's fund balance was ran down. We agree with that. We want to keep those numbers to be balanced as close as possible. But we also are realists in that we have more main breaks, more things going on because we don't have the people in the system and we don't have as much money coming in. Second part is a lot of people have stopped paying their bills. Now we are finally turning them off after many years, but if the bills aren't being paid, that money's not coming into our fund balance.
Well, we're still recognizing the revenue, it's just
Right.
not, so that's a whole accounting thing.
And I was going to say, is that's probably something that our treasurer can explain better than I can.
Is the cost from GLEWA and GCDC the same?
No.
Which one?
When we take water from GCDC, it's 80% more cost than GLEWA because of a set price that was put in back when all of this was decided that it was going to go. Up through this fiscal year that we're coming into, 23. When we get into 23, then there's a wage, or I want to call wage, but there is a price reopener, and we'll then try to come up with what the new price is going to be from them. GLEWA does that every year.
So
They had a set price for the first number of years and it's in the agreement that the city and the state and GLEWA and GCDC all went into.
Does it cost us more money to treat one versus the other? Or are they both roughly the same? But we get the same
They're-
quality water from both?
They're roughly the same type of quality. We have, in one case, there's one chemical. If we're just running on GCDC, I don't think we add any
Sodium hydroxide.
sodium hydroxide to lower the pH, or raise the pH, sorry, to raise the pH because they're already at a high pH coming in, much higher than what GLEWA's is coming into us. But for the other two chemicals, chlorine and to add orthophosphate, the phosphoric acid, we have to add a lot to it to meet what our standards are in our system as was determined by as Scott Dungy here said, determined by the testing and such right after the water crisis.
When's the last time that we checked our leakage? How much leakage do we have?
We have, in the last 2 years ago and last summer, we had a company come in and they went through a leak detection for the whole city. We paid for a complete corner to corner to corner to corner, square the whole city out. The first time, we had a lot of leaks, and we started working on those in those 2 years. The second time, we had a lot less leaks, but we still had found some new ones, and we have worked on those to take care of them also.
So
And they
do we-
would
do we
tell
know
us
Do we know a percentage?
large leaks.
So in
Here.
2019, we had the company starts in the northwest corner, they work their way across.
What are they using?
They have leak detection equipment, ultrasound, they can
So,
get on the
why are-
valves and the hydrants, the appearances that we
Is
have.
it the smart ball thing?
No,
No.
no. So this
Can't we
works
just
pretty
figure
well.
can't we just figure that out from, obviously, when we run a hydrant test or something, that's not monitored, but on a monthly basis, what are we billing out to customers versus what are we taking in? Can't we find out from that delta?
We can pull up that data. We don't have it right with us right now.
Yeah, yeah.
But, and then at one point, there was a good difference. Since we've done this leak detection and going out and fixing the leaks, it has gotten much tighter. I could let Scott talk about that because he sees the water coming in, the water going out. We don't directly see how much is billed out. I mean, our machines do pick it up, the meters pick that up, but then it goes through treasurer and, they put the bill out and they collect the money for how much is out there.
So realistically-
We can, I'm not saying that we can't do it, we can. We just haven't done the balancing to always look at how much was billed. And she may do that every single month. I just don't have that data in front of me.
That's going to be one of my requests, to make sure.
Yep.
I want to see what, I don't know if, we're obviously probably not billed in cons, but how are we Are those how off are those numbers?
Well, I can tell you, back when I was first here, I happened to, in the middle of winter, I saw steam coming up on the side of the road. Went over, found that there appeared to be a water main leak. Looked down, there was a swamp that it was getting into, so no one even noticed it. Had my crews go out there, they went in, they went out and sounded, listened, yep, we got a water leak. Tore the road up, found the water leak, fixed it that night at 8, 10, 11 o'clock at night. By the time they finished, it was a large 12-inch main. Came back the next day, I got a phone call from the water plants asking me what I did. I said, what do you mean? He said, we've been running, I can't remember the number, but 21 million gallons a day, now we're at 18. We dropped 3 million gallons. What did you do? What's going on? I said, well, we found a leak. So even a leak that you don't detect or see, it was leaking down out into a swamp.
And the only way we would do that is comparing the
Correct.
numbers in and out.
Well, even if comparing, we don't know where that is.
Right.
By having the sounders, we did. I just fell upon it, to be honest, to find it. And when it blows up a street, we know that it's there.
I'm just thinking that if there is a big delta in those numbers from in and out, then maybe we do need to do another leak detection to
Well, we're currently doing it every 2 years.
okay.
So, and then picking it up, like I said, there was a large amount in the first one.
Yeah, there was 118 leaks found the first year. And, you know, as they turned them in to us, they gave us the locations, what was going on. Some of the leaks were actually main breaks that were getting away into the sewer. You would never know unless you were a resident walking down the street. But, you know, for a long time, people walked. So we would get them calls quite frequently, and then for quite a while, people weren't. So stuff like that gets by. But, so these are some of the stuff that was happening, and some of them were leaks that they had been going for quite a while. So once we excavated, like, the road was undermined. Surprised the road didn't cave in, or somebody didn't create a hole when they drove through. But we had 118 leaks the first year, and then we did it again this past year in 2021, and we were down to 49. And that was more, and they were more minute than anything. Some of them were vacant houses, where somebody had moved out, cut the plumbing. You know, we initially showed that address was off. Somewhere along the line, somebody probably squatted, was living there, and after that, cut the copper out of there. You know, there's a lot of copper theft,
So
this has helped quite a bit, along with the new meter system as well. But, you know, anytime anybody sees anything, once again, if somebody sees something, we need to call us. You know,
certainly.
I get some calls, well, that's been leaking for 3 months. Well, you know, if you would have called me 3 months ago, we could have had that taken care of.
You know, as you guys know, we're embarking on a massive demolition plan. Do we have budgeted folks for cutting plugs on water lines so that we don't slow down that process at any time?
We have crews that do our cut and plugs.
Paul's
And-
smiling, so.
I know, he's smiling because the next part out of my mouth is, and the cost of that is for our guys to do it on overtime. So we get a crew out, if we have to, we'll have crews on Saturdays and Sundays out there staying ahead of it. This happened before, we've had lots of, when I was previously here 15 years ago, when I was working with Paul and the other foremen and operators that were at the Water Service Center, we had a huge amount, hundreds that they wanted done, and it was like, okay, tell us which ones you want done when, and we're able to get them done. It's done on overtime of it, some of it's done on straight time if we have the time and the people, but we will do due diligence and get it done. We have done in the past.
So,
I'm hoping that I can't guarantee that, because if people don't want to work and we're offering overtime, that has happened too, where they've worked so much they turn down overtime. So I can't guarantee it, but I'm pretty sure that we'll take care of it.
I think Paul's got something to say about
I will
that.
let him next, because
Yeah.
he's been through it more than I have in his 27 years doing it.
Because we're, you know, as we got 2,300, 2,400 properties. I don't know what the duration or total allotment of man hours per each cut and plug on those, but I'm guessing it's substantial. So how do we backfill that so we don't slow down the process because everybody's begging for these houses to be torn down?
I guess the biggest part is that as these come in and what quantity that they come in at and what time of year. The one year that they dropped 300 on us in the middle of winter, main break season, and demanded we got them done, so that we did that. But, so sometimes it just depends with everything that we have and the staffing we have, and depending on the personnel and how many hours they're willing to work, you know, we might have to make some other arrangements to try to make sure that we can cover, to make sure that we stay ahead of the game as far as the demos. Because we've been out there before where we got these 300 and we need them done yesterday. And we get them all done, and today some of them houses are still standing. So, you know, what urgency are we really at to get these completed?
So are we
So
capable?
don't put me out there in a situation that I want this stuff done, and then you're not gonna get it demoed anytime soon. If we can work and kind of plan and coordinate everything and know what kind of scheduling we're gonna have and what we're dealing with to make sure that they're done, you know, in a timely manner.
Do we have the resources for 800 a year? If they're spread out over the course of a year, do we have?
I'm sure we can handle it.
Okay.
We've handled everything else with less people. And I can tell you that because I've been here forever, so.
Right. How are we testing fire hydrants? Are we regularly testing fire hydrants to make sure they're not, I mean, I don't know what happens, do the valves seize up? Like how, like, are we potentially in danger if there's a fire and we get there and it's seized up? How, like, is there a yearly thing, what we're doing?
Yeah, so we have an annual fall and winterization program we do it starts October 1st, usually ends mid-November, depending on other emergencies.
And
that come in.
every fire hydrant is touched?
Every fire hydrant.
Okay.
We go through them, we operate them, flush them, change gaskets if they need gaskets, we lube all the caps, replace caps if need be. Minor repairs we'll do right there on the spot. And any that are inoperable or need more attention, you know, we write up work orders on them, we'll go back and once we're done with the program, get through the whole program first, go back and then take care of the ones that need to be
So
put back in service.
does the city have any inoperable fire hydrants at this time?
No. Last fall, yes, we do find some when we're out there, and I mean, that's part of the program as well, besides flushing, because the routine flushing helps with the system as well, so, you know, so we don't have the
So
stagnation.
how many did we replace last year?
Just from the program, probably a dozen.
Okay.
Now, throughout the year, because of all these fine drivers that we have here in the city of Flint, that's a whole nother story. And just to touch on that, so we used to have a risk management department, so that as we got called these hydrants that got hit by cars, you know, when we did the work, we'd go out there, we'd notate on the order that it was actually hit by a car. We'd submit them into risk management, and they would follow up on it with a police report, because anybody that they had information on, they would bill their insurance if they had somebody. Now we don't have that, so everything that gets repaired or replaced due to that, it's on our dime. So that's something that actually we need to probably address somewhere in the near future, but once again, that all boils down to personnel and who's willing and able to do that.
Right. My last couple of questions are in regard to filters. So, Mr. Brown, I understand that you saying that your water is fine. The EPA still recommends everybody drink out of filters, drink filtered water. So, how do we, or what steps do we have to do as a group to remove that EPA recommendation?
Well, one of the things that we have to do is to do these testing that we are currently doing for lead and copper and stay below the federal mandated numbers. Right now, it's 15 parts per billion for lead. So our testing came out, we had been going down each one for the last 3 until the one here, we went up from 6 to 7 parts per billion. So as that number stays below that, that is the number that they're looking for. As long as we're below 15, it should be safe. We still have many people that feel that the water is unsafe. as I said, I've drank out of my tap even though, and I don't have a filter. My wife would only drink out of our filter that goes through our refrigerator. But I tested it, I had it tested. I can tell my water's safe. And with the test that I've seen and being a chemist, I feel that it's safe, plus my background in water and wastewater. So I can't tell somebody else that unless you test your water. Test your water, check it, and then you have confidence in what that water is like.
And
Now, in regards to the EPA, I can't say what we have to do because I don't know.
Okay.
To remove that mandate or their suggestion, you know, they're going to suggest on the side of ultimate caution, and I agree with that. Same as I would tell somebody, don't drink out of your water faucet unless you know what your quality of water you're getting.
Are we still providing filters to the community?
Yes, we are.
And how do?
And that actually, we aren't, the state is.
Can
The
you,
state
can
sends
you,
us,
can you expand on how people get filters?
they can go right to that front desk here in City Hall, and they
Okay.
have the filters there, and people can pick them up right from that location.
Okay.
We also have navigators that if they call our health department, our health division, they will go in and drive them out for people who can't make it up to the city of Flint.
Okay.
Point of information. Can they still dial 211? Isn't that the number that they used? 810
Yeah.
410-2020.
That's the health,
That's
the
the
health
health
navigator line.
There's our health navigator, no phone number.
So, my final point I want to touch on is in regards to something you said earlier, Mr. Brown, about, you mentioned specifically Goyette, and we paid them X amount of dollars for potentially stuff that we can't recoup out of the wind funds because there's a dispute over addresses. How is that going to come out of, which fund, if we can't recoup that from, and have it come out of the wind funds, how are we going to pay for that? Is that going to come out of the water fund somewhere?
That would have to come out of in the end, it would have to come out of the water fund. Right now, we still have some of their retention money, and we're holding that retention money until everything is disseminated, and we know what is what.
Is somebody working on trying to clear that up, or is it just going to be up in the air till the end of time?
There are people working on it, but it's not involved in me directly overseeing that. That is being done by the administration.
Okay.
And Goya is working on it also, because they have access to our system. They have able to look in our City Works, I think it is, that they can look at and see just stuff for what lines have been done and what lines they say they did restoration on. It's actually put into the computer.
Do you know how many service lines you have replaced in your tenure of 14 months?
Of actual service lines replaced?
Under the FAST program? Do you know how many?
Probably, yeah. Okay, in year 2020, we had, because of COVID, of course, we had 19,069 excavations, and we replaced,
That's,
1969, 1,969, if I get my
Yep.
numbers correct, excavations, and 417 replacements. In the fiscal year 2021, we had 634 total excavations, 214 replacements. Now, two things happened. We had COVID, and we had problems with the company that was doing the work because they couldn't get people because of sickness. So a lot of things were slowed down. Another problem was that the company that we had was only supposed to work through a certain time frame. And last summer, there were a couple months that they had another job they had to do. So the city waited for them to get that done, come back, and then they went back to doing
So-
replacements. But the other problem is that we have a lot less to do than we used to. I mean, out of the 30,000 or so homes that we have, we've done 26,000 already have been looked at. I'm not going to go into why some were, some weren't. and everything, because I wasn't here then, and again, hindsight's 20/20. I can tell you exactly what we should have done from what I can see that was or wasn't done at that time, and I don't want to second guess anybody, because I wasn't here. But we are working on to get more done. We know of about 400 and so affidavits that we had, but we had 363 of those at the end of last year, and we couldn't get people to agree in an area to do it, because the company, wants to go into an area and get 5 or 6 done in a short period of time, and they were going out, and of the 6, they might get 2 of them actually dug because there was somebody home.
So,
So they had problems too in regard, not only problems with people wanting them to, we want to get them done as Mr. Simpson here has said, we need to get them done before December 31st. And anything that any council person can do to help us to get people to agree or to be home,
well, I think we need that list. I don't think anybody's got the list of any residents that are in dispute. So you have to get us that information so we can help you.
and now that we have Row on board, as soon as the contracts are fully signed, we will be able to do that.
So with the excavations in 2020 and 2021, the 2,500-ish in those 2 years, did those just add on to the restoration tab, or were those dug and restored all in once?
Most of those added on to the restoration tab.
So we're still not,
They started towards the end of 2021. They started doing the repairs because they could do them, and especially in the streets and such, because the other problem is that if they have to do a street cut, we wanted the repairs in the street done first, and then we'll get to the lawn and such secondary, because everyone drives through the street. And I'm not trying to say that it's wrong or right, but that's the way that was looked at. And they don't want to they have to watch that street, and they're responsible for 90 days of that street, and then it's turned over to the city. So their thought was they had to keep putting stone. Currently, we put stone in, 21A, into those holes. As it gets washed out or pushed out, whether it's winter, summer, et cetera, they have to keep going back and patting that up. They came and asked to have, when we had them use asphalt, and they used a price, they gave us a price which was the price of what other people were charging us to do asphalt work or lower, and the state okayed them to do asphalt. So they were fixing the humps in the road every time that they, in an area, because the street was already closed for their work, they were doing that. So some of that was taken up by them, not all of it, because they didn't start that until late in '21.
you said something that troubled me. Why does Roe have to tell us which ones the customer doesn't want replaced? Why does that have to come from Roe? Why don't we have that documentation where you can tell us who in our ward, what is that depending on the Roe contract for?
Well, I'm saying that the row people have that in their system.
We don't have that?
We have it, but it's going to take a while for us to go and pull it out of everything that's out there. I don't know. I haven't dealt with that part of it, so I'm not 100% sure. I will see what I can do to get you that information as quick as possible.
I mean, ultimately, we're hiring Roe, but we should still own it.
Well, it's still in our system, but I don't have the people to sit down and do the work that they've done in the past. So I will have them put together what they have, and we can take a look at that. We do have listings of all of these 8,500. There is a listing of that. How many of them were done, how many weren't done, how many people did their own, we don't have that. And that's why part of remember the 2.5 million, part of that is for having their inspectors go out and take a look at these locations and see what really needs to be done on what was or wasn't done previously. Because some people have taken care of all their lawn work
But
because.
Paul is saying that he's got to go out and inspect their work too.
He's inspecting the work being done when the lines are being put in. I'm talking about after the lines are put in and they backfilled, we don't have anybody who, except for a little bit, again, Lang for a little bit last year was filling streets. but we've had nobody ever doing that because it wasn't put together.
So when Paul goes out and inspects the line, are we budgeting his wages, or whatever, whoever else in his department go out? Are we billing that to the wind fund?
No.
Why not?
That's just, we have just had a person doing that.
Why not?
We were keeping track. I believe so, because we were actually filling out timesheets that were actually separate. Anything that was dedicated to the Fast Start program was totally separate. We kept separate timesheets for that, so that was all part of the grant. So that should have been paid for.
Can you check on that to make sure we're still doing that, Mr. Brown? And that's all I have. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Ms. Herkenroder?
I think the majority of a lot of my questions were already asked and answered by my colleagues. I think that my biggest questions are probably going to have to come from Amanda with the Treasury, just based off of the answers that I've heard today. But I do just have some questions regarding the capital improvements. What exactly are those capital improvements? Because right here, it seems like we have 1.53 budgeted. What's happening with that?
Was that for the Water Service Center?
I
Is that, I think that's what you're
lost
probably looking at, yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't say it's the fund is 591540.
Yeah, that's us.
Is that
That's
Water
us.
Service Center?
So what that is that, that's part of the leak detection process.
Okay.
We're required to have a valve turning process as well.
Paul's yelling at you to use the mic.
Oh, sorry about that. I don't want to get in trouble now, it's kind of late. So the professional services would be like the leak detection. At some point, we needed to have a valve turning process. We do exercise some of our own valves. Obviously, when we're out there doing main breaks and other things, we keep a running list of that, so we know at least how many that we've got, because we do a sanitary survey every 3 years for the EPA and Eagle, and so that's part of our program as far as that Arcata study. That was a requirement as well. We have some water main that needs to be repaired that's under the river. We have kind of set up a 4-year plan for fire hydrant replacement and for water valve replacement for our larger valves on the transmission mains, because I don't foresee us getting all this main replaced as they require us to. So we've rebuilt a lot of these valves out there. Some of them are open geared valves, if you know anything about them. So the parts are actually exposed. They're in the manhole. They're actually exposed to all the sand, all the sediments, everything that'd be in a manhole. So that tends to eat away at the gears. These are 80-year-old valves, some areas almost 100 from the dates that are stamped on them. So just so that we can keep control of the larger transmission mains. And, any small ones, obviously, that might need attention, but majority are the large transmission mains, and these valves are not cheap. They're anywhere from $15,000 to $22,000, and that was last year's prices. So
Probably
with that,
upwards of
that's kind of a
50.
4-year plan as well.
Yeah.
Because with everything we have going on, it's going to take time to do that, because that's not a small project
Yeah.
to replace one.
Right.
So that's kind of what we had put in there, along with the sand barn, because as all of our sand is stored outside, so the rain, the snow, as you backfill, all that stuff is frozen in clumps. So we'd like to have it where it's protected from the outdoor elements, so that when we backfill, as you've seen probably in some of the main break areas, when the spring comes around, you start seeing where everything's sunk. Well, that's from them frozen clumps of sand that finally are broken down. So we'd like to have a barn or something that protects the sand backfill, so we don't have that issue. That also helps us with claims, which is a whole nother addition to the funds.
Okay, and then I guess thank you for that. I guess like the last question that I have, so you said that FY23 there's going to be a price reopener with GCDC, right?
Can you say that again?
Sure. So you said for FY23 we're going to have a price reopener for GCDC?
Yes, for the
Okay.
cost of water.
Right.
And more than likely, like I said, I don't know that it'll come down or not.
Right,
But
but it'll be open
that'll be an
nonetheless.
opener.
So then is there a way to, because you said that's every 5 years? Right? I see Scott's not, 4 to 5 years. Is there a way to renew?
Unless we do some type of major capital improvement, that's why they're allowing us to open it up every year for a couple years, because we're adding, you know.
I'm talking about GCDC.
GCDC.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, GCDC, he's talking about Gliwa, or Detroit. We're working on them to try to get our system better at taking water from them to get it as cheap as possible to us, and as cheap as possible for our residents.
Is it possible to
But-
look at that reopening more than, more regularly?
Well, once the first part of that contract that we have with GCDC, then it is a yearly.
Okay, okay. So after this, it's safe to assume that it will be annually?
It'd be a yearly or annually, or if we go for 2 years or 3 years.
But more regular
It's going to
than
be
it
a
was.
agreement between the two of us.
Okay, all right. Those are really all the questions. The remainder of my questions, I think, are going to have to be directed toward Amanda, and I'm also looking at the time, so, thank you.
Dr. Lewis, did you have any questions?
Yeah, so they answered quite a few, but I know I had a question regarding, I guess, the process. So I know that I took my water downstairs to be tested, and I never received anything. It was like I never did it. So, so my question is, I guess not really the accuracy of that, but as far as the procedural process of that, in terms of, okay, how many people have not received results? I didn't know what was next. So that's
Okay.
why I didn't know who to call or who to talk to.
So you went down to City Hall here and took the 2 bottles home and did the 2-bottle test and brought it back. Okay, if you didn't get something, then I would ask you to go do that one more time and let me know when it's going in so that I can get it traced. Everyone should be getting from the state, whatever you put on that, on the letterhead or on the forms for taking those samples, they are to send a report back to that address. So that address should have gotten a report. Now, many of the reports also come to whoever was in charge before me. Now I've got them switched so that they all are coming to me also. So they come electronically to me and I give them to the water plant, and the water plant sends a second notice out. So we make sure that they're covered. Most people will get 2 notices. So when that happens, if somebody doesn't get a notice within a 3 or 4 week period, I need to know about it to see if I can track it down. Or second, because it's not ours, it's the state. We have the bottles that we take it in, the state comes and picks it up, and they are the ones that give us the data back. So I have to wait for the state to do that. If there is something missing and I have an address, I can go and get it checked from the state, because I do have people there I can talk to. So after this, if you give me your address, I would be happy to do that.
Okay, thank you. And
Approximately when you sent the sample in.
I don't remember.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been a minute. And then also, as far as the hydrovacing, is that the correct term? I want to make sure I
That's
said
a
it
correct
right.
term, yes.
Okay, so have you all received any complaints about residents' lines being cracked or fractured because of the hydrovacing? I see he nodded his head, yes, in the back.
Not of recent times. I know they had in the past when we had a contractor in here doing that, but not that I'm aware of. But if there are any issues, please contact us so that we can address the issue and get it taken care of. Whether we get it directed towards Fast Start, if it is in fact a galvanized or lead line. If it's a copper line that's been damaged, we want to definitely get it taken care of. So please contact us at that number, the 766-7202, right away. And any water complaints for that matter.
Oh, so that's the water at cityoflint.com?
Yes, 810-766-7202.
Okay,
So
Thank
like I
you.
said, even if it's after hours, after 4 o'clock, it goes to the emergency line, and that rings through to the phone that I carry.
okay. Yeah, so that's all I have for now.
All right, now it's my turn.
I'm sorry, we're out of time.
Mr. Brown, you and I have a relationship that goes beyond we just like to kid each other. Anyways, so I do have a friend who is in the band that I play with, who actually was supposed to have the first water line replaced, and they dug it up, and she didn't have lead, and her water is still lots of lead. But I'm going to get her test kit, and we'll test it again and see where she's at, and then we'll follow up on that.
The lead can come from different sources. As I
Yeah.
stated, it can come from the line, it can come from the solder that was done in a bad solder job or a lot of solder inside the pipes. That's a place where lead can come in also because back into a couple of years ago, lead was one of the components of solder. Plus, we have old fixtures that have lead in them because there was never a problem. And if you have an older house, those fixtures, 20, 30 years old, don't meet the standards that we have now.
I think
For
EPA
lead-free.
went in through her house and they couldn't find it. So make sure we'll get her water tested.
Please
again.
do.
Yeah, she's an older lady, nice lady. Let's talk about the jobs. 5 vacancies in the water treatment plant. Did you reorganize as well like the sewer plant did? And,
Well, we've done some reorganizing so in 2014, they decided to make water. When we made water, we needed 2 operators and a foreman, so you needed 3 people there, minimum staff. So we hired a tremendous amount of staff. After 2 years, they shut it down, they realized they weren't gonna make water. All the people left. So at one point, we weren't even hardly able to function. Like I said, all the people in the lab left, we have to immediately contract that out. The top person that had the D1 license, we all have to be state licensed, that person left. So they wound up contracting that out. It took me a couple years to get the D1 license, but now I have that, so we're working on trying to get F&V out of there. But there was a mass exodus, and we've been slowly trying to restaff it, and we did reorganize, because now we're not gonna make water out of the Flint River, so the jobs have changed a little bit. So we are reorganizing a little bit, but ultimately, we need more staff. I mean, everybody left, and we're just a bare bones staff right now.
yeah, you're at 5 vacancies, lots of overtime,
Oh,
too?
yes, oh, yes. You
Yeah.
know, I don't even have a maintenance department, I have one maintenance supervisor.
Okay, because I know that they said that the waste treatment plant, or the water treatment plant, whatever you want to call it now, that they had reorganized and they had this many positions that they needed filled. And that, have you done that as well?
Yes, we have reallocated some positions and trying to, reorganize it to the way, what I feel it needs now to function.
So do we need to add employees at a higher level than what they are currently for the new hires, like we
No.
do at the,
No, we just need to fill them.
Okay.
I have
Okay.
taken like 2 foreman positions, or 2 senior operator positions that we're no longer gonna need, and we're allocating them to a different position.
Okay.
And they're equivalent the same.
so you're not in the same situation as the?
Not quite, no.
Okay, good. What about the Water Service Center? We've got 66 positions in 2002, 22. In 23, you've got an additional 2, but how many are vacant?
Them 66 are combined water and sewer, because we are in the same facility. But on the water side, we have 12 vacancies in the water distribution maintainer position, or its operator position now, as they call it. And we're short one administrative assistant, which is a secretarial position, and a building maintainer. Right now, we're just contract as far as cleanliness in our facility, if you want to call it that. We get 4 hours a day, but, so no, and actually, we have the job posted, currently it's posted. The last round, which was last fall, probably September, we had 2 applicants. And before that, I think we had, COVID kind of messed the last round up, but the pay is the biggest problem. We're underpaid. The position don't pay that much more than it did when I started here 27 years ago. We've had a couple increases, but over the time we've had, right after the increase that we had, we've been taken over by the state 3 times. And you probably know the rest of the story.
Yeah.
The benefits and everything financially, anything that brought people here to the city is gone. And the starting pay right now is they're bringing them in at a 5th-year rate, So unless they
And
get
how
promoted.
much is that?
$16.99.
Okay,
So that's only about a few dollars more than when I started here 27 years ago. And the workload's way higher than it was then.
and McDonald's
And-
pays 15 or something now? All right.
Let's go get a
So-
Happy Meal.
All right, so that's obvious. I mean, we know that this is an issue, the starting wages, and, but we gotta do something to fill these vacancies, because that's 12 vacancies in, between the water, in the enterprise fund. So, and I don't know, I don't see bad debt in the water, in the thing, so that's a Amanda question. So we'll deal with that as well. All right, any other questions from council?
I really don't have a question, but this is just a comment that might assist with your staffing issue. So I know that the CTE program they have at Westwood Heights, those students, they do a variety of things, electrical and plumbing and stuff is one of them. So it might be wise to maybe team up with them, because they do have, again, I know it's not plumbing per se, but those students are looking for a trade and looking to build and get career experience. So they may be interested in pursuing opportunities with the city to help build. So even if they don't stay here long term, it may be a way for them to get their foot into the door, learn, give you the help that you need short term, and move on until you all can pay more.
I did talk to the director there. We happened to be there for a Saturday meeting. They were giving awards, and I stood in for the city to accept an award from the water group there, and talked with him about that, gave him my card, and said, if you have anybody who's any interest at all, please give me a call so that I can, get them into the right department, talk to them a little bit, find out what they want to do, and try to get them into a working position. And I haven't gotten anything back from him now. Probably my fault too, because that was last summer and I haven't tried to follow up on it because of, again, short staffing.
Right, well, I know this program is currently, like right now, in full swing in their building, so I think now is the time to get on, and kids are actively, funneling into it. So I think now might be the time.
Okay.
It might give you what you need.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Our next budget hearing, departmental budget hearing will be on Monday, May 2nd at 5:30. We have city attorney's office, the office of the ombudsman person, and the human resources, labor relations. This hearing is closed at 8:31.
Thank you, gentlemen.
You're welcome.